All right, I will call the meeting to order. This is the February 12th, 2026 Town of Fishkill Planning Board meeting, and the meeting is called to order at 7 p.m. And I'm Jonathan Cantor, Chair of the Planning Board, so would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Just a couple of quick announcements. As always, please silence your cell phones in the audience. And also, everyone speak clearly into the microphone. I think I'm showing up pretty good. Can you hear me okay? It appears that one of our members, Jody Burka, will not be able to attend tonight's meeting, so I'd like to appoint Kevin O'Connell as a voting member for tonight's meeting. Thank you, Kevin. All right, so we've got two public hearings tonight, and the first one we will start with right off, and it is Willow Lake Partners Group, LLC, Site Development Plan, Special Use Permit, and Freshwater Wetlands Watercourse Water Body Permit. The applicant seeks the following approvals and permit: Site Development Plan approval and Special Use Permit approval under Town Code Chapter 150 for the adoptive reuse of several existing structures and amenities for the construction of new improvements to include overnight motel accommodations for guests, comprised of 32 semi-attached motel structures, 64 units each, approximately 600 square feet in size, and 16 fully detached motel structures, each approximately 950 square feet in size, and accessory facilities including a restaurant with outdoor seating, a larger event space designed for group dining and special occasions, a welcome building, a small building serving as a trailhead for on-site hiking, a spa building, a fitness building, an accessory flex building, hiking trails, parking, and other necessary site improvements. And also a freshwater wetlands watercourse water body permit under Town Code Chapter 82 for proposed disturbance within the town of Fishkill regulated water body, 50-foot buffers. The parcels are identified as tax map parcel number 625500432320, located at 4-16 Willow Lake Drive, consisting of 92.82 acres in the R40 and R4A zoning district. Tax map parcel 62550047 472382, located on Van Wyck Lake Road, consisting of 10.98 acres in the R40 and R4A zoning districts, and tax map parcel 625500359445, located on Van Wyck Lake Road, consisting of 1.74 acres in the R40 zoning district. Just so everyone is aware, there is a stenographer present. Welcome. And she will be preparing a transcript of the hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Fred moves it, and Anthony seconds it.
Yep.
All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries. We have 7 voting members tonight. All right, welcome to the applicant team. Yeah. So the applicant team is trying to get their presentation ready, but we will ask when that is resolved for a brief description of the proposal before we invite the public to speak. While we're waiting, what I would like to do is read our rules of conduct for public hearings. So here they are. Speakers are asked to come to the podium and identify themselves so that their name may be entered into the record. Speakers are limited to 1 turn at the microphone. Speakers are limited to no more than 4 minutes. The planning board attorney will keep track of time. and there will be a warning when there is 1 minute left. Speakers should provide only new or different information. Repetitive comments made previously or at prior meetings are discouraged. Speakers are encouraged to submit their comments in writing so that they can summarize their comments during the hearing. Comments are limited to matters involving the business before the board, that is, the particular application under review at this hearing. Please address your comments to the board, not to the audience. Verbal interruption, shouting, or other outbursts or obscene language are prohibited. No speaker shall make any personal attacks on anyone. And if a person continues to interrupt after the chair has asked them to stop, they will be asked to leave and may be escorted from the meeting room. Okay, are we all set?
I think so.
All right.
You want to also suggest which way to start with the spelling?
Well, if speakers remember, if you can spell your names, otherwise we can provide you with a list of the spelling of people speaking, hopefully. I think some of the names of people in the audience when they speak, we've never done this before. I will ask you to spell your name, but if you prefer not to, and if you forget, and if I forget, don't worry about it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, would you like to give us a brief summary of the proposal for the benefit of members in the audience and at home?
Sure, we will. And good evening, members of the board. My name, for the record, is Alex Friedman of Willow Lake Partners Group. A pleasure to be before you this evening to discuss our site plan and to hear public comments. As the board may recall, this property has a long and storied history. It once housed the Knickerbocker Lodge back in the late 1800s. Willow Lake itself was man-made in the late 1890s, and since 1923 has been, over the course of the last 100 years, a wonderful place for celebrations. We've seen that extensively throughout its history. Our mission with the property is to really restore it to what its glory is and should be. We were very careful and thoughtful in the way that we've outlined the proposal and the submissions to make sure that we are providing minimal impact to the land and the way that this has been laid out. We were particularly mindful to place our proposal and our plan in area of the land that has already been cleared to minimize disruption and environmental impact. Obviously, we've been before the board on many occasions. We've submitted plans, and many updates to those plans been available to the public. And of course, we do look forward to hearing their comments on our proposal.
All right, any further details you might want to give at this point? I know we'll have more discussions, but for the benefit of those at home, especially who might not be familiar with it.
Sure, I think from a high level, what we are proposing is a commercial recreation use and what we hope to be a retreat. Our use is very particular to enjoying the environment that Willow Lake is. There's going to be, obviously, I'm sure, a lot of discussion around what this site may produce. I just want to maybe make one overarching comment, which is that the primary purpose of this retreat is to enjoy the nature and the beauty that it is set within. And so we've taken special care and consideration to not only make sure that noise levels and things like that are taken into significant consideration for our own guests, which is obviously a major consideration for us. And they're only a couple of 100 feet away, if not 50 feet away, from some of our main uses. We really did put a lot of thought and care into how this is proposed and laid out, and we hope that the public will see that we've not only considered all of the surrounding environment, but that it is our interest to make sure that that is the case for them as well.
All right. Good. Well, thank you very much. And why don't we get going with the public hearing?
Thank you very much.
So please raise your hand if you would like to speak. When recognized, please come up to the podium and give us your name, spelling of your name, and address. Yes, ma'am, I think you raised your hand first. Go ahead.
Good evening. Glasses. My name is Jane Drake, Janedrake, and I am a resident of Van Wyck Lake Road. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
I oppose the granting of a special use permit for the development of the Willow Lake project. I've lived in Fishkill for 34 years and raised my family here. And now that my husband and I have retired, we intend to remain in our home and look forward to the peace and quiet we've always enjoyed in our neighborhood. I believe that the Willow Lake project would greatly and negatively impact the quality of our daily lives. As of now, excuse me, there is very limited traffic on our street. We're able to sit out on the front porch and enjoy nature and the changing seasons. This project, if greenlit, would mean a substantial increase in the number of vehicles passing our home. Some will be driven by intoxicated patrons just leaving a wedding or social event. I have read the traffic study that Willow Lake Partners attached to their application, but common sense will tell you that events serving 500 people will result in many more cars on Van Wyck Lake Road, including many backed up at the intersection of Route 9, waiting for the light to change. I've also seen the other studies commissioned by the Willow Lake group. The environmental impact, noise, and lighting studies that were done. All the studies conclude that the impact would be minimal. But again, common sense will tell you that hundreds of trucks carrying dirt up the hill, a roadway torn up for electric lines, water, and sewer, the cutting down of numerous trees, and building of structures, pools, sports facilities, and parking lots on the site will create a huge nuisance for us and our neighbors for a long time to come. If we should decide to sell our home, will realtors have to fight their way around construction vehicles to get to showings? Will buyers be willing to overlook the mess and noise of the project? Would you? Our home value would almost certainly be affected. I ask the board if there is precedent for granting a special use permit in Fishkill's history for any project of similar size and scope in a residential area. I don't believe there is. This is not a mom and pop bed and breakfast. It's a $40 million project that would forever alter our neighborhood. I respectfully ask that you stand by the residents of Van Wyck Lake Road, Snook Road, Cathy Court, and Monday Lane, and deny this application for a special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Oh, come on up.
My name is Stephen Schofield, S-C-O-F-I-E-L-D. I live at 40 Van Wyck Lake Road. I grew up there as a kid. It was a dirt road back then. My grandfather was caretaker for Louis J. Land and Jerry Andriosi. I know every inch of that property. And I just, coming out of my road, coming out of my driveway, I take a chance right now because all the cars making a shortcut going over the hill to Wickapee and back, it's terrible, you know, because I take a chance. They come the road 40 miles an hour. It's a 30-mile zone. And I just worry about the traffic, and I worry about the way things are going to be, all that commercial traffic and stuff. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who else would like to speak? All right, come on up.
Good evening, Marie Sprock, S-P-R-O-C-K. My husband Justin and I live at 164 Van Wyck Lake Road. We are immediately adjacent to the project. The applicants describe expertly crafted disruption as a core business strategy. It's a phrase taken from the website of Ruckus, which is the marketing firm owned by two of the project partners. That framing is relevant because disruption is not an abstract concept here. It translates into measurable impacts on traffic, noise, lighting, and community character. Before any approvals are considered, it is essential that the board fully understand the business model assumptions underlying this application. Those assumptions will determine frequency, scale, permanence, and activity at the site. Despite direct questions, the applicants have not provided clear projections regarding event volume, occupancy rates, or revenue targets. By their own statements, this project involves an investment of $40 million with no intent by the principals to be involved in day-to-day operations. A development of this magnitude cannot be financially viable without sustained, high-volume, commercial, continued use. Even under conservative assumptions, simply recovering infrastructure costs, not including debt service, operating expenses, staffing, maintenance, and profit, would require activity levels such as 100 large-scale wedding-type events per year, or nearly every weekend year-round. Full or near-full occupancy of the 80 lodging units for more than half the year, or multiple corporate or private events every week at substantial attendance levels. Any of these scenarios results in continuous commercial activity and impacts, including traffic surges, potentially impaired drivers, amplified sound, lighting, deliveries, service vehicle, guest turnover, all occurring on our narrow, winding road. The intensity of this is fundamentally incompatible with the existing character of a residential neighborhood. For these reasons, the planning board should require full disclosure of operational projections and carefully evaluate whether the scale and intensity of this proposal align with zoning intent, comprehensive planning goals, and the established character of the neighborhood. To further quote the Ruckus website, everything has a financial impact. That's true for everyone involved in this project. For the Willow Lake Partners, a potentially successful commercial enterprise. For the coffers of Fishkill, potentially additional tax revenue. But for the neighboring residents, the impact is very different. We face a decline in property value and quality of life so significant that more than 50% of the current residents are now considering selling their homes and relocating after decades of contributing to the Fishkill community. In this equation, the local residents bear the greatest cost. Planning decisions are not solely about what can be built, but whether a proposed use is appropriate within its location. The Willow Lake project, as proposed, represents a commercial enterprise whose financial viability depends on activity levels that will permanently alter the quiet residential nature of our surrounding community. This conclusion is reinforced by the sheer number of special permits and zoning variances being requested.
Ma'am, 1 minute warning.
Sure. This project does not represent integration into Fishkill. It represents exactly what the applicants themselves describe, expertly crafted disruption. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to come up and speak next? Yes, sir, come on up.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Piccone, P-I-C-C-O-N-E. I reside at 30 Cathy Court, and my property, as well as 3 other adjacent residences, are directly impacted by this project's proposed easternmost parking lot and roadway, as well as the valet parking, checkout, and fitness building. I have been a resident of this town for over 30 years, during which my family has valued the stability and quiet character of our neighborhood. If this planning board approves the requested special use permits, it raises several concerns with interpretation, oversight, and long-term protection of our established residential area. Where in the E code does it state something of this magnitude is permitted in an R4A residential zoned area? I also don't recall seeing this property outlined for commercial use in the town's comprehensive plan either. So who is interpreting that an event hall for 500 people, a restaurant, 80 motel rooms that could theoretically accommodate over 1,000 people at any given time is a permissible use of this R4A zoning? Approval of the proposed easternmost parking lot, newly proposed roadway, and what I'm guessing to be a 24/7 valet parking building, because you can't have guests come and tell them that they can't leave, right? So it's got to be a 24/7 operation. That'll be happening directly behind our house, impacting our property, including increased noise, lighting, traffic, not to mention years of construction. These conditions have the potential of severely diminishing our quality of life and may ultimately compel us to consider relocating if they prove unsustainable. To whom does the planning board serve? Is it the residents or big money special interest? One point I wanted to ask that I don't recall being brought up before: Willow Lake has a dam, and I haven't heard anything about the quality of this dam. Is it in good condition, and is it ready for commercial use and activity? I respectfully urge the board to give careful and serious consideration to the effects this project will have on long-term residents, as well as the precedent it may set for the future character and stability of our community. Do not allow our R40 zoned neighborhood to become commercialized through special use permits. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Yeah, come on up.
Hi, my name's Rich Drake, D-R-A-K-E. I live on Van Wyck Lake Road. As a taxpayer and resident, I'm among many signing a petition opposing a special use permit and variances allowing Willow Lake Partners to inject a large commercial enterprise into our residentially zoned neighborhood. I submit that the collective impact of adding this to Continental Commons, a medical center on Snook Road, and distribution center near Home Depot will overwhelm our neighborhood infrastructure and local traffic. The applicant seeks adaptive reuse of several existing structures. This euphemistic language implies minor change. Historically, sometimes a few buildings on this residential property were rented out. In contrast, this adds multiple structures up to 35 feet high, 80 motel rooms, a total of 116,000 square feet of indoor space, and hundreds of parking spaces. A town official is quoted as saying, "This could make Fishkill a premier destination for weddings and celebrations." I doubt they would want it in their neighborhood or that you would want it in yours. Town code says it should not adversely impact public health, safety, and general welfare of residents. It should share characteristics in common with, not of greater intensity, density, or environmental impact, and have no greater adverse effects on traffic, noise, air quality, parking, or any other relative attributes. Isn't greater density nearly 3 times the indoor space of homes, cars, and people in the entire neighborhood? That's how many cars, people, and everything would be around. Information regarding history, interpretation, and application of other special use permits was requested, but not available. This could have indicated how similar issues were managed and how often large commercial establishments were allowed in residential zones against the wishes of local residents. I believe approving this violates the spirit and intent of these permits, bringing negative impacts to 25 homes in a 500-foot radius, plus 14 nearby. Disruption and noise for months or years of construction, demolition and removing 157 trees. Tearing up Van Wyck Lake Road to feed power, sewer, and up to 30,000 gallons of water a day from their own perspectives. Substantial increase in traffic regardless of an applicant-paid study for up to 500 patrons with 3 per car. That would equal 160 cars. But the truth of it is, there's usually 2 patrons per car, which equals 250 cars. Blocking drives emergency vehicles for a half a mile to the light at Route 9 for people arriving and departing. This road is winding and narrow and will valet parking at personnel on 24-hour shifts to park cars. One parking lot will have 180 cars replacing a wooded view that one of my neighbors has 200 feet from their window. There could be potential aquifer damage and flooding due to paved parking instead of natural ground absorption. Ongoing nuisance, noise, lighting, and traffic regardless of any study that minimizes the impact and reduce property values. To close, Chapter 150 also says a permit must consider if a project is not otherwise allowed in a one-family residential zone. That's out of the code, not out of my mouth. Not in harmony with the zoning district or negatively impact the neighborhood. Excuse me. So we welcome these people to enjoy their property, but we do not welcome a massive commercial enterprise overwhelming our neighborhood. The planning board has authority and discretion to approve or deny this. Their first responsibility is to the residents and taxpayers. What if this turns out to be a disaster? Please consider if it meets requirements or fairness to residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who would like to be next? Yes, sir, come on up.
My name is Edmund Spaeth. I live on Van Wyck Lake Road. It's a very windy road. It has limited sight ability for me. I have a blind curve, and I have speeding cars coming down the road. I have a very hard time getting out. Whatever these people have said, I agree with, because we don't need a hotel complex up the hill on a very rural road. It's winding. There are school buses that go up and down this road as well. They don't need this extra traffic. I also want to admit to you people is that we have a threatened species that lives in the area. It's a fisher cat. So what is this hotel complex going to do to preserve this endangered species? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to be next? Yep, come on up.
Michelle Picone, PICCONE 30 Kathy Court, Fishkill. I've come up before. I'll try not to say the same things. Although the board acknowledged our concerns so far, we've had open dialogue with the Willow Lake partners to come up with foliage solutions in our backyard. Although, you know, we take that all into consideration, we still don't want it in our backyard. We've heard the applicants say the guest experience. What about the neighbor's experience? We also have been 30 years. I can't believe we've lived in our house for 31 years in July. We've heard the applicants say, did I already say this? The guest experience. What about the neighbors? I think I already said that. We live in Fishkill. I work here. We pay taxes here. We've been active members of our community. Some on the board I've seen in sports and things over the years. If we go to sell, are we going to have a hard time selling because this is in our backyard? Do we sell now even though we aren't ready? We're really not ready and don't want to, but, and we bought our house for a reason. We could have bought in a big neighborhood that had neighbors in back of us and the sides of us. We bought this house for a reason, because of the privacy. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Yes, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Lokema, Lolkema. I live at 56 Van Wyck Lake Road, and in an effort to avoid being repetitive, I would just like to say that I support the statements of my neighbors. My children and I walk on the street. It is windy, and I agree with what Ed says. People come very quickly through the road. I'm concerned about the impact that it will have on our neighborhood, but everyone spoke very eloquently, so I'd just like to say that I am a neighbor and I am not in favor of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? I don't see any hands being raised. That's not our practice. How many minutes did he have?
He did not use his full time.
All right, come on up and we'll let you, as long as this is very short, come on up. No, come on up. Come on up, very short.
It's very short. I'm concerned about my neighbors, Stephen Schofield again. The bridge has overflowed before coming down the road, and I'm worried about the parking lot there, 250-car parking lot, what it's going to do to people on Kathy Court and the other roads there on Van Wyck. It's going to cause major flooding down all the way down to Route 9. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? While we're, just in case anyone wants to come up who hasn't spoken yet, I'll just mention that any written comments that have been received or are received will be entered into the public hearing record. We will ask that responses to all substantive public comments be prepared by the applicant and submitted to the board. And also, the Town of Fishkill Zoning Board of Appeals will be considering a request for several area variances for this proposal. The ZBA will be holding their own separate public hearing on the proposed variances. And those variances have actually been referred to the planning board, and we have that on the agenda for discussion later on this evening. All right, well, having mentioned all those things, let me just ask board members if there are any questions or comments, either following up to what we've heard from the audience or anything from the applicant that you might want to ask at this point. We will have a project review and further discussion on the proposal later on the agenda as well.
No comments right now.
All right. All right, well, let me turn to our attorney, Dominic Cordisco, and see if you have any comments or suggestions, and in particular, whether the public hearing should be closed tonight.
Yeah, given the fact that there has been a fair, opportunity for the public to comment, I would suggest that the board consider closing the public hearing, but extending additional time for written public comment, because the board, as I'm sure you're aware, has been receiving written public comment, and there may be an opportunity for those who are here now to have additional thoughts that they want to share with the board, or those who couldn't make it tonight to be able to provide additional comments for the board's consideration.
Do you have any suggestions for how long a time period we might consider extending?
10 days is standard, sir.
And although it was mentioned before, we'll just reiterate that the planning board has received a petition from residents in the area. I don't recall what the number of signatures on it is, but it was substantial. It must have been, sorry?
27.
27, thank you. What do board members think about closing the public hearing and perhaps allowing for additional period for written comments to be submitted?
I would support that, and I'd be willing to make that motion if there are no other comments from the board members.
I agree with that.
All right, would you like to, all right, so Anthony would move.
I'll make that motion, yes.
All right.
I'll second.
Felix seconds it. And 10 days, well, I was going to suggest that it be on a weekday ending the period, so it could be Friday, February 20th. That would be slightly less, but we could also go to the Monday following the weekend.
What's the Monday?
What's that date?
That would be the 23rd.
Monday, February 23rd. All right, so does that fit in with your motion, Anthony?
It does. My motion remains.
All right.
Still seconded as amended.
All right, so that's a motion to close the public hearing tonight with an additional time period to submit written comments to the planning department until Monday, February 23rd. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that carries 7-0. All right, so as I mentioned, there will be further discussion on the agenda for further review of the Willow Lake application tonight. All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And we appreciate all the comments we've received. And also, since we have extended the written comment period, please feel free to send comments expanding on either things you've already mentioned or anything else that you would like to bring to the attention of the board. Okay, so our second public hearing tonight is on Fishkill Medical Park freshwater wetlands watercourse water body permit. Applicant seeks a freshwater wetlands permit for the proposal known as Fishkill Medical Park, identified as tax map parcel 625500255525, consisting of 9.93 acres, and tax map parcel 625500468570, consisting of 37.84 acres, located on Snook Road in the R40 zoning district, to conduct a regulated activity within a town wetland area. A wetlands water course water body permit approval is required for 3 small areas of wetland buffer disturbance shown on the Fishkill Medical Park grading plans on file in the Town of Fishkill Planning Department. The total wetland buffer disturbance of 0.13 acres was determined in the State Environmental Quality Review negative declaration adopted by the board on November 18th to be a minor disturbance given the area of wetland buffers left untouched and in the absence of any disturbance to wetlands themselves. The board adopted a resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval for site development plan and special use permit, and a resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval subdivision on December 13, 2025. So just remember, this public hearing focuses specifically on the wetland permit. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Anthony moves it. Or Felix moved it, sorry. All right. Felix moved it, and Fred seconded it.
That's right.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, welcome, Mr. Kane.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. Thank you. Thank you for the chance to be here again. Just briefly, as you may know, due to a filing error on my part, we didn't mention the public hearing requirement for the wetland permit, but all of the issues related to the wetland buffer area disturbance and the wetland permit were discussed in the environmental impact in the environmental assessment form. So a lot of this information is certainly old to this board. But just to briefly go through it, the site was surveyed by a professional biologist in June of 2024 to identify the on-site wetlands which meet the Army Federal Corps of Engineers requirements for a wetland area. And 2 wetlands were identified on site. They are both forested red maple swamps. And the project was designed to avoid the wetlands and avoid the associated buffer areas. They have a 100-foot buffer area around the wetland areas. So the project was designed to avoid impact to the greatest degree possible. We do have a total of 5,711 square feet. That's a 0.013 acres of disturbance in the buffer area to create the emergency spillways and the stormwater basins and one small area of grading for a drive aisle. And you can see those on the plan here. The one at the bottom here is for the discharge in the stormwater pond, same in the upper right corner. And this little area of disturbance here next to building 2 is for the grading of the drive aisle in that area. There are no wetland impacts. So as determined by our biologist, there really is no impact on the wetland function on the site here. And in fact, the stormwater facilities will be planted and landscaped, and the stormwater basins will function as a breeding area for many of the herpetale species. Those are the amphibians, the snakes, the lizards. They already live here, so it will increase some of the habitat for many of the species that are already found in the area. And then to prevent further impact to the wetland areas, the potential for it, we do have measures that will be implemented on the site here. Control of dust on site during the construction specifically, and dust control notes have been added to the erosion and sediment control plans that have been approved by this board. Implementation of the erosion control measures during and post-construction, consistent with the SWIP and the erosion sediment control plan, and those are certainly monitored during construction and post-construction, not only with our staff, but also by the town engineer. And then we've paid particular attention to avoidance of planting any non-native or any invasive species as part of the landscape plan, so we don't impact any of the wetland species. And the implementation of these design measures has been determined by the biologist to mitigate any potential for significant impacts on the nearby water resources. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I've already read the rules of conduct for public hearings, so I won't do that again. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this matter of the wetland permit? Nobody? Sure. You want to come up so we can hear you?
Michael Picone, P-I-C-C-O-N-E, 30 Cathy Court, Fishkill. Was there a public comment for the overall plan already for this project?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There was a public hearing quite a while ago, actually.
All right, so regarding the wetland permits, is that taken into consideration, the flooding that comes down along the houses on Snook Road and overflows and crosses Snook Road and floods out that proposed area? Has that all been taken into consideration? And where that goes and where that runoff goes when the flooding occurs?
Well, if that is that the question, I'll ask the applicant to come up to address that.
I guess that's my only concern.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize, I've been distracted with another project, so.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kane, would you like to come up and just quickly address that?
Happy to address it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yes, there was an extensive stormwater report done, which took into account all of the existing conditions on the site there, and the stormwater management program has been designed to address runoff from the site to make sure that none of the existing conditions are exacerbated by the development of this project. And that report, of course, is reviewed by your town engineer.
All right. All right, anyone else? Okay. Board members, any questions or comments? All right. I'll ask our attorney, Mr. Cordisco, if there are any comments or suggestions, and what is your thinking on closing the public hearing tonight?
I would recommend that you close the public hearing tonight, and also, given the fact that the board previously conducted a public hearing on the overall project and the limited nature of this particular application that's before you, that unlike the prior application, I would not suggest that you hold open time for written public comment.
All right. Any thoughts from planning board members before we ask for a motion?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Would somebody like to move to close the Fishkill Medical Park Freshwater Wetlands Watercourse Water Body Permit public hearing tonight?
So moved.
Felix moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Anthony? Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the public hearing is closed with a vote of 7-0. And there will be further consideration of this a draft resolution, actually, that was prepared a little bit later on this evening. Okay, let's move on. We have a request for extension of approval. This is for Johnson Trails 5-lot subdivision. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on January 28, 2026. which is a request for a third 90-day extension of the resolution of conditional final approval adopted by the board on February 13, 2025. The board granted the first 90-day extension on August 14, 2025, and a second 90-day extension on November 13, 2025, which expires on today, February 12th, 2026. Welcome, and if you don't mind, would you just give us
Sure.
a real
Albert
quick-
Roberts, attorney for the applicant. We had hoped to get this resolved before Town Attorney Gaba retirement went into effect. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. He did call me. He also indicated that the town requires a letter of credit, which was not clear in the subdivision regulations. We did, and we are in the process of finalizing a letter of credit with the notes required in your subdivision regulations. The engineer had some last-minute issues with the subdivision map. Bottom line is, I fully expect to have this fully resolved within 30 days and submitted for your review and approval. I believe Mr. Cordisco has substantially approved the prior documents we have submitted, and it was only the town board documents that were outstanding. So we respectfully ask for another 90 days, and I hope we don't need it.
Any questions from board members? Anything from you, Dominic?
Yes, Mr. Roberts is correct that this was not completed prior to Mr. Gaba's retirement, unfortunately. And the supervisor of the town has asked that I complete it, so that there's not a change in counsel with someone else or another firm needing to get up to speed on the project. Certainly familiar with it, and I'll be happy to do that. And I'm as long as you're providing documents within time frame, the letter of credit, I think that we could close it out.
Yes, hopefully that everything will be resolved within 2 weeks.
Yeah, you can just reach out directly to me through Debbie, obviously,
Yes,
for
of
the
course.
submission, but any questions that you have, please feel free to contact me.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it, thank you, have a good weekend.
Well,
Well,
they didn't
yeah,
act
we're-
on the
we're gonna,
extension.
We're gonna see if somebody would like to make a motion to approve a further 90-day extension of the resolution of conditional final approval for the Johnson Trails 5-lot subdivision, which I believe would go to May 13th, 2026.
So moved.
Is that was Bob moving it, and Kevin second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Now that carries 7-0.
Thank you, sirs. Good night.
Good luck. All right, project reviews. We are back to Fishkill Medical Center for the freshwater wetlands watercourse water body permit. We have a draft resolution of approval for that permit. And I'll ask Dominic Cordisco to review the draft resolution which you prepared. If you would, please.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling it up. My apologies.
I've got a hard copy if you'd like it.
I'm just having a senior moment, so my apologies.
There's always a benefit to hard copies, in my opinion. Yes, I agree with that.
It should be draft number 5, dated, and there was a mistake in the date, it appears. It says it's dated February 56th, but that would not be right.
Looks like it's dated February 6, 2026.
Okay. Right. Yes, so once again, this is a draft resolution for the freshwater wetlands watercourse and water body permit approval for the Fishkill Medical Park. We'd actually, if you may recall, we had begun work on preparing a draft when the project was up for approval previously and has been approved by the board, with the exception of this particular aspect of the project. when Debbie discovered that the application form itself had not been submitted. So now that that has been done, as well as the requisite public hearing on that application, you have before you a resolution that lays out all of the procedural aspects and makes certain findings. The findings begin on page 3. I would draw your attention to those at the bottom, where you're finding that the proposed regulated activity is consistent with the policy of the town's code to preserve, protect, and conserve wetland, watercourse, and water body functions. The permit is issued, is at least as restrictive as would result under the Freshwater Wetlands Act of the State of New York. The activity is compatible with public health and welfare. The regulated activity cannot practically be relocated on the site to eliminate or reduce the intrusion into the wetland, the watercourse of the water body, or the buffer areas. The regulated activity minimizes the degradation to or loss of or any part of the wetland, watercourse, or water body, and minimizes the adverse effects on the benefits of wetlands. And the proposed regulated activity is in compliance with the regulations that are established by DEC in connection with wetland regulations. The resolution goes on to state a number of conditions. Obviously, all work has to be done in accordance with the approved plans as well as the stormwater pollution prevention plan. Prior to commencement of any of the work, they have to gain coverage under the Speedy Stormwater General Permit. They shall employ the services of a licensed professional engineer to conduct periodic inspections during the course of all work within the area of the wetland in the buffer zone. The project sponsor shall also submit to the town of Fishkill as-built drawings to ensure that the structures and all final grading were completed in accordance with the approved design. The town of Fishkill reserves the right to rescind or otherwise withdraw approval for this permit in the event that the project sponsor fails to conduct or complete the work required. The planning board authorizes the building inspector to act on its behalf as the local administrator going forward and to conduct periodic inspections throughout. There's a requirement that if there's a change in ownership, the applicant or the new owner has to be notify the zoning administrator within 30 days of the transfer. And there's also timeframes that if work is not commenced and completed within 1 year, then the approval would expire unless an extension, which has to be requested prior to thereto, has been requested and approved.
Any questions or comments from board members?
No.
Dennis, any comments?
No, we had given our letter, it was dated December 31st. All of our comments have been addressed.
Good, okay. And any questions from you?
I do have one. I have one timing issue, Mr. Chairman, and not. Maybe I should keep my mouth shut, but I figure I'm only raise it now. As we've talked about, this project is 2 buildings. We're going to build the first building and then build a second building. We're not going to be done with the second building in a year, and all of the site work will be done. The wetland, the work in the wetland buffer will be done. The mitigation will be in place. Everything is fine except for that the requirement on number 4 under your resolutions on page 4 that we submit as-built drawings to ensure the structures. We're not going to have an as-built of the second structure in a year. And I'm wondering how best to resolve that.
That doesn't have a time frame attached to it. You know, so
well, okay. It's just that on the resolution number 1 on page 5 says all activities authorized herein not completed within a year. It puts the permit at risk, and so that's what gave me pause.
Understood. I read that as activities as being the actual physical activities on the site rather than the conditions of the approval. is how I would read that. You know, I think that an appropriate time frame when work is completed on the site, thereafter, the as-bills would be submitted when you're prepared to submit them. So I don't think it's the position of the town to request as-bills before the work is done.
Thank you.
Right.
But there is that provision in the last further resolved on page 5, which does allow for a request for an extension if anything is necessary. So I think you're covered.
I was hoping to avoid having to do that, but I think Mr. Cadisco's explanation means as long as we have the land disturbance issues in place related to the wetland disturbance, then the permit is still good. And then once the building is done, we submit the as-bills.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like if the work is not done in connection with the wetland disturbance within 1 year, like you must request an extension of this particular permit, because otherwise this permit will lapse.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm clear. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Excuse me,
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one correction, it's minor.
Oh, okay, where is that?
The first page, second bullet, Kirchhoff is actually spelled wrong, it should have 2 H's. I didn't pick it up till tonight.
I can't believe I didn't pick that one up.
I dare you.
Please don't tell Joe.
And just in the distribution on page 5, there's just some spacing issues in the carbon copies that I'll take care of.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, now do we have a motion to approve and adopt the resolution of freshwater wetlands watercourse water body permit approval for Fishkill Medical Park located on Snook Road as reviewed and revised tonight, and to authorize the chair to sign it? Fred moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard Felix second it. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 7-0.
Thank you all again.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. All right, the next project review is Healy Hyundai Second Amended Site Development Plan and Lot Line Realignment. Board to review a draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final reapproval, second amended site development plan, a draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final reapproval for a lot line realignment, and to consider adopting and authorizing the chair to sign the aforesaid documents. And as we said at the last meeting, the board will allow informal public comments after discussion of the draft resolutions of reapproval. And so I'll mention that at the January meeting, the applicant team indicated that the only outstanding item on the approved site development plan was the lack of completion of required landscaping along the site frontage on Route 52. So that will segue into asking Dennis if you would just very quickly summarize your memo of February 9th regarding your inspection of that.
Okay. We did do a site inspection where we met with the applicant and with the building inspector on site. We went through the plans and inspected the landscaping that was installed, and everything that was installed was per plan. And as part of that, there will be a 1-year guarantee for all those plantings that would that'd be in place.
I sure hope so, because I don't know if you've observed the site since you inspected it on the January 23rd.
That was right before the snowstorm. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a mountain on top of the landscaping. It's kind of more like an iceberg on top of the landscaping. So, yeah, it's kind of a given that I think we had mentioned at the meeting in January that it didn't sound like such a great idea to do plantings like that time of year, and then lo and behold, we got hit with the biggest snowstorm I think most of us can remember. And it's just given the nature of that site, seems like snow and ice just pile right on top of that planting island. So you mentioned, we appreciate that, Dennis, that a one-year guarantee on the landscaping that was planted. There's also a condition in the previous approval and in the upcoming one that we're going to consider tonight, where there's a maintenance bond for landscaping that once planted, it was inspected. I think given the conditions of the site, when it comes to springtime thawing, or hopefully maybe sooner, because I think we're supposed to get temperatures in the 40s in the next few days. Hopefully we'll be able to actually see. I mean, I drove by there myself to try to see what happened. It's impossible. There's no telling what the condition of the plantings is now. So anyway, that's just something to consider, and we can go over the resolution with that provision as well. Any questions or comments from board members?
No. Just didn't know you could.
Well,
Most of the experts would say that in Zone 6, planting during the month of January is not recommended.
yeah, Fred, repeat what you said.
I just said, I don't see how you could plant so, how it could be done. We'll just know that we had just prior to it, and then on top of it, it just doesn't seem logical that's going to survive at all.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is you can't do it reasonably and expect it to survive.
I mean, even if it melts, I mean, I don't know what damage has been done between now and just putting it in.
Yeah. So it'll be the obligation of the applicant, the Healy operation, to replace any, and in this case it may be all plantings that don't survive. So, any other questions from board members? No. All right. What I'd like to do, we will see if there's anybody in the audience who would like to make informal comments about this proposal, and we'll also give the applicant a chance to speak. But why don't we ask Dominic to go through both draft resolutions, one right after the other, and then we'll take them separately afterwards.
Okay, and I also understand that I believe Jessica's here on behalf of Healy Hyundai, and my understanding from emails today is that there are some, what I would consider to be fairly minor corrections or suggestions to the resolution. If the board, however you would like to proceed, or if you would like to go through all of it first and then we could hear from Jessica, or perhaps as we go, I know that there's some, trying to keep track of several minor ones, but what you should have in any event, you should have before you draft number 3, I think it's dated February 6th, for the resolution of preliminary and conditional final second amended site development plan reapproval. So obviously these resolutions are built based on the prior approvals, so with the exception, as discussed regarding the landscaping, that all the conditions that were established for the original project, remain. And so I'm sorry I'm being hesitant, but I don't know if it's best use of the board's time to go through all of the conditions of things that you already previously approved, and perhaps just better focus on the new condition which was added to address the landscaping, which is on it's number 14 on page 5, which now reads, this is a new condition that's been added to this particular reapproval, that all landscaping and screening indicated on the approved site development plan shall be installed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion. In particular, All the landscaping along Route 52 frontage of the site shown on the approved site development plan, drawing number LP1, entitled Landscaping Plan, dated June 28, 2023, last revision date July 26, 2023, shall be planted no later than the spring 2026 planting season. That was the only substantive change, made to this reapproval. All of the other changes that were incorporated, is really reflecting the current status of the overall application.
Do you want to just quickly summarize that maintenance bond requirement in number 4, condition number 4, just for the benefit of the audience in particular?
The maintenance bond?
The maintenance bond, which really deals with landscaping in particular.
Correct.
So if you want to just give a quick summary of what that is about.
And I'm drawing a blank on that, and I apologize.
We have maintenance bond required, number 4.
Oh, and number 4.
On
page
3.
Yeah, I'm not feeling 100% tonight, so my apologies.
You're probably not the only one.
So the applicant shall maintain the maintenance bond or security previously posted with the town, which shall remain in place for a period of 1 year post-issuance of the certificate of occupancy or the certificate of compliance, to ensure that the landscaping improvements and plantings installed are maintained in a vigorous growing condition or otherwise replaced with new plants as appropriate. Prior to the release of the financial security, the building inspector or the planning board's engineer shall conduct an inspection and assessment of the landscape plantings and screening and submit a report to the clerk of the planning board concerning the condition of the landscape plantings and screening and the intention to release the security on a date certain. So
okay.
if what was planted, most likely did not survive, it will have to be replanted and ensure that it takes, and the performance security will remain for 1 year thereafter.
Right. Thanks. Okay.
And with that, I think Jessica probably has some
suggestions. Why don't we take,
Sure.
do you have any suggestions or questions on it? And we could go through those now.
Yes, thank you. For the record, my name is Jessica Zalen. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, DKH Realty LLC, Healy Hyundai. One of our questions was related to that condition 14. As Mr. Cordisco mentioned, we did send some comments over earlier today, and most of them are very minor, just kind of clean up comments. But on this particular point, and with the benefit of the memo from Mr. Lynch, we were just wondering whether this condition should be modified because the plantings have been installed prior to the spring 2026 planting season, with the understanding, obviously, that maintenance bond remains in place and the applicant is responsible for replanting anything that does not survive after our current Arctic weather. That being said, we just don't want to have the requirement to plant be encapsulated in here in such a way that we cannot get a certificate of occupancy before the 1 year period has passed. We just don't want those two provisions, interacting with one another in that way. So maybe there's a way to rephrase it, essentially to say that the landscaping has been planted.
Or here's a suggestion.
Sure.
From a non-attorney, but from a person who's good at reading resolutions. Could we just add on the last line, shall be planted, or if necessary, replanted no later, and I'd still like to have the date, certain time of the planting if it has to be replanted, because I'm pretty much assuming it's going to have to all be replanted.
I think we'd be comfortable with an acknowledgement that, yes, the planting was done. We understand that we would have to replant if necessary. So I think that would make some sense. Yes, that would make sense. And we appreciate, Mr. Lynch putting that memo together in short order and sharing it with the board. I will also note on that same provision, I think the date of the plan may be incorrect. The last revision date of July 26, 2023 is correct, but the original date of the plan was March 30th, 2021. The last revision is obviously what's controlling here, so I just want to make sure that we're referring to the correct documents.
Yeah.
What was it,
And
March?
I'm making a red line.
Yeah, what was the March date?
March 30th,
30th.
2021.
Okay, thanks. And did you have any other minor
Yes.
corrections or typos?
So
I did make the correction to the date.
To the date,
Of
okay.
the original approval, I had October 7th, but that was a Saturday. The date should have been in October 12th,
Great.
2023.
And then the only other thing we noticed is that there's a reference to section 150.97C on the bottom of page 2 or top of page 3
Yeah.
here. And
It should be D, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, we thought that it should be 115.98, but I could be wrong there. So please just, subsection 97.C seemed to deal with the procedure, not the standards.
Yeah. It should be 98, that's correct.
Okay.
So it should be 150.98?
Correct. I've made that change.
Okay. Any others?
That is all on this resolution.
On this resolution,
It
okay.
sounds like Mr. Cadisko already addressed our date comment, which was our only other comment on the lot line realignment resolution as well.
All right, well, Dominic, do you want to quickly go through, and again, just very quick summary of the lot line resolution?
Yes, so once again, this is a reapproval of what was previously approved for the lot line realignment. You have draft number 3 in front of you, February 6, 2026. And once again, this is a project that was previously approved by the board. And in this case, there is no additional changes to any of the conditions that were established as part of the original approval, but I do believe that there are some minor cleanup items here that Jessica may want to point out.
For this one, I believe the only cleanup item that we noticed was the date of the initial approval.
And where is that shown?
That would be on page 2, that first whereas clause. It says October 7th, and it should be October 12th.
And if I may, I'm sorry to go out of order here. Would the board entertain adding a reference to Mr. Lynch's memo in that condition, just to document that the planting had occurred, had been inspected, and then acknowledging that we will replant if necessary?
Well, we have that on the record. It's in the planning department, and that's really the requirement for signing, for the chair signing the resolution.
Okay.
So I think that's sufficient. All right. Questions, comments from planning board?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just a little bit confused. Are we going to add the date that you had, or a date that, as you had recommended on the replanting or potential replanting?
It's already in there.
It's done. Okay.
It's no later than spring 2026.
Great, thank you.
All right. Dennis, anything you want to add?
No.
Liz, you've been sitting there quietly. Do you have,
Thank you for noticing.
anything, any ideas? I know this wasn't one of your projects, but
Sounds like you're catching a lot of details.
all right. Okay, so at this point, I would like to see if there is anyone in the audience who would like to make informal comments regarding these requests for reapprovals. If there is, would you please raise your hand? There is. Why don't you come on up? And just give us your name and address, and we'll give you up to 4 minutes to speak.
Okay, great. My name is Maureen McCumber, and I'm a Fishkill Woods resident. I'm also the treasurer of the Fishkill Woods Board of Managers. I'm actually here on behalf of our president, Bridget Anderson, who could not be here herself tonight, but she did ask that I come to share her comments with everyone on the Healy project. First, the sidewalks installed along Route 52 in front of Fishkill Woods and Fox Ridge continue to deteriorate. If the New York State DOT specification had been followed for walks along state highways, this condition should not have arisen on the sidewalks that were months old. I believe they have a responsibility for 1 year after installation. This issue was brought up within that time frame. I have asked repeatedly that these sections of walk be removed and replaced and have gotten nothing but pushback. The sidewalk that was removed for the Healy project had no deterioration issues, and we should not be left with sidewalks that are in poor condition. 2, and she doesn't know about the conversation today, the plantings that Healy had installed in January required that they use equipment to remove the snow and picks to dig into the frozen ground to put in the plantings. There are 2 issues with this. The first is that they are not going to survive the tundra-like conditions of this winter. I'm not sure why they even tried to do this. Secondly, I do not believe that what was planted is what is called out on the approved plan. They are required to follow the plan unless they are allowed to make modifications approved by the town. Third, vendors for Healy have continuously utilized the turning lane for the dealership to unload vehicles. I reported this to the town supervisor repeatedly and requested that they be ticketed by the police department and told in writing that this is dangerous and not the intention of the turning lane. I have photographs of this and text messages that I've sent to Ozzy about this issue. Fourth, as part of the project, a pedestrian crosswalk sign was installed on the north side of Route 52, the top of the hill when you're heading towards Healy. The closest crosswalk is at the intersection of Route 52 and Route 84. So the sign should either be placed closer to the crosswalk, if that's what the sign is for, that walk, or removed entirely, or if there's supposed to be a crosswalk near the dealership, that's where it should be put in. There have been so many issues over the course of this project. It is a great source of frustration for the Fishkill Woods community. Many of us have spent a great deal of time going to meetings, doing research, attending site visits, etc. If nothing else, our community should not be left with less than what we started with. Sidewalks that are in excellent condition and that will not become a safety hazard that we need to spend money to fix in the future. Thank you for your efforts on our behalf. Bridget Anderson, President, Fishkill Woods Board of Managers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this matter? All right, seeing none. Just as a matter of full disclosure, I did receive that email from Bridget Anderson earlier today, and I forwarded it to planning board members, so we have it on the record. And I appreciate the fact that Bridget did send it around. It is something that's been an ongoing issue with different things going on at that site. So we're hoping that possibly this will turn things around once we get the plantings healthy and fully probably replanted as necessary. And the Healy operation will understand that they are part of the neighborhood, and will cooperate with Town Hall. I think things will be good. So, having said that,
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Is there anything that the planning board can do about, the fact that it sounds like maybe they might be having issues with the sidewalk? She wrote this to you. I know you sent it to us. Is that part of the conditions of approval?
well, a little bit of background on that. It's a very good question. The sidewalk was part of the Route 52 widening project for the turning lane. And as part of that project, it's a state project, and that was all a requirement under the state project, not under the planning board approval. There were discussions and agreements made between the applicant and the state to replace the sidewalk that had pre-existed the road project. And it's obvious from observations by Ms. Anderson and others who live in that development that there are issues with the sidewalk. So, I hope that's something that can be worked out. It sounds like the supervisor has been contacted about some of these things, and whatever the supervisor can do to help rectify any of these situations, that would be good if that could happen. But it's not something that's really directly under the control of the planning board.
And if I may, my understanding from speaking with the applicant's contractor is that some of the degradation of the sidewalk may be due to the current weather conditions and some salt applications on that sidewalk. I personally have not witnessed the condition, but that was what was relayed to me prior to this meeting. So we can certainly take another look at it. As we've all noted, the weather conditions this month may not permit any action in that regard.
Thanks. So let's consider the two draft resolutions separately, unless there are any further questions or comments anyone wants to make. So first, is there a motion to adopt the resolution of preliminary and conditional final second amended site development plan reapproval, that's a mouthful, for Healy Hyundai located on Route 52 as reviewed and revised tonight, and to authorize the chair to sign it?
So moved.
Felix moves it. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Ravi seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Any abstention? Oh, and one abstention. So that carries 6 in favor, no opposed, and 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. And then next, is there a motion to adopt the resolution of preliminary and conditional final lot line realignment reapproval for Healy Hyundai as reviewed and revised tonight, and to authorize the chair to sign that?
So moved.
Felix moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
6 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention. All right, that should do it.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
All right, thanks for coming. All right, that brings us back to Willow Lake Partners Site Development Plan, Special Use Permit, and Freshwater Wetlands Watercourse Water Body Permit. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on January 27, 2026. All right, welcome again. I know you weren't able to really go over any of the updates before the public hearing, but this would be a good time if you want to just highlight any of the plan updates or updates to the traffic impact study in particular. This would be the time to do it.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. For the benefit of the public, Zach Ham from Dynamic Engineering. What we did is resubmitted a civil set of plans that addressed a few of the minor comments remaining in MJ's latest memo. Some of those responses had to do specifically to traffic and some wayfinding signage that is included on the updated plan set. We also included an updated stormwater plan that addressed some of the other comments from MJ's latest memo, as well as the updated traffic study.
All right.
If you want to talk.
Yeah, just briefly, good evening, Chairman, members of the board. As it relates to traffic, as Dennis indicated the last time we were before the board, the only thing that was outstanding was site distance relative to the center driveway. Through supplemental discussions with the traffic engineer at Dennis's office, we did come to an agreement to add some advanced warning signage. Those have been depicted on the revised site plans that were submitted. And I believe the latest memo dated February 9, 2026 indicated that all outstanding items have been satisfied relative to traffic.
All right. Well, Dennis, do you want to go over MJ's memo?
Sure. Going over our memo dated February 9th, going through seeker, the board had classified this as a type 1 action back in September 11th of last year, and initiated a coordinated review. Zoning compliance, we outlined the zoning and the need for both a special use permit and a site development permit. Go through the request for the variances. We note that the special use permit requirements need to be met, and that the project will need is in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, so there are some requirements that need to be addressed with that to the board's satisfaction. Watercourse and water body permit, we make note that there are wetlands on site, that there will be a permit through the town, and any additional permits through the DEC. Most of our comments on the site plan have been addressed. Again, we note on comment number 15, the environmental constraints, the need for the town of Fishkill water body permit. Make comments of all the off-site improvements for the water and sewer need to be improved by the sewer district and the Dutchess County Board of Health. We note that there's going to be a 5-acre disturbance waiver that's going to be required prior to any disturbance greater than 5 acres. The last comments had to do with the SWIP. Most of them have been addressed. We do note that they'll have to submit a notice of intent prior to any disturbance on site. And then prior to any CO, there'd have to be a maintenance agreement between the town and the applicant for any stormwater requirements, maintenance requirements. As mentioned before, there had been some significant conversations offline with the applicant regarding the traffic, and all the traffic comments have been addressed.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from board members? Nothing? Let's see, my understanding is we still need a sign-off letter from SHPO. Is that right? We're still waiting on that?
That is correct.
Okay. Any recent communications with them, trying to get them to move along? Sometimes it takes a little while.
It does. We reach out regularly. We're still just working through that process with them. But we'll provide a no impact letter as soon as we have it.
Okay. One thing I was just going to mention, there are several waivers being requested by the applicant, so parking 455 spaces required, 274 provided. Loading spaces, 6 required, 3 provided. The planning board may reduce the requirement by up to 50% of any of those requirements. So at some point, the board's going to have to kind of weigh in, leading up to, obviously, resolutions if we're going to be getting to that point at sometime in the near future. But just wanted to see if there was any further thoughts or questions at this point about those particular waivers, parking and loading. I think typically the planning board likes to see less parking rather than more. And actually, when we get to the variance part of this a little bit later, I have a couple of things to mention about that. But also, yeah, Dennis mentioned a special use permit will be required. Dominic, could I put you on the spot and just sort of refresh the board's and the audience at home's recollection as to what a special use permit actually is? And we've gotten some comments that, you know, a special use permit for a proposal like this has never been granted by the town, by the planning board before. Well, I don't think that's an accurate statement, but I think if you sort of refresh everyone's memory about what a special use permit actually is, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, so generally speaking, you know, the town is divided by zones, and there are different zones within the town. Some are more residential and others are more commercially oriented. And within those zones, generally speaking, uses are either allowed, where they're allowed as of right, they're allowed perhaps with a site development plan, or they're not allowed, and yet another category would be that they're allowed with a special use permit. The purpose of a special use permit ultimately is to provide discretionary approval with the planning board to ensure that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area. And in make that determination, there are specific criteria that have been pointed out by a number of the commenters on this project, that the planning board, in order to grant a site development plan approval for the project, will also have to make certain findings for the special use permit.
Good. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and you're, if I may, like procedurally, you're not there yet.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're at a point where you're still processing the application. You add enough material to hold a public hearing. You haven't made a secret determination as of yet. The project, as you noted, needs variances as well as waivers. There are a number of procedural items that the board would have to consider prior to, and it would be the ultimate decision on the project was whether or not it meets the criteria for a special use permit.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question here?
You certainly may.
Does it make sense, Dominic, to assume that in conjunction with the zoning areas that you described, R40 in this case, that the infrastructure that services that zone is built in conjunction with that zone being defined? So in an R40 zone, you would assume then that the roads, the water systems, the sewer systems, et cetera, the infrastructure is built to support that zoning. So in R40, we're talking about residential 1 acre zoning essentially. So if we have roads that are in support of that zoning, does it make sense then that once that road is going to be used completely differently than would be defined by that zoning, that would be some sort of a requirement for a special use permit?
The criteria don't specifically state exactly what it is that you're saying, but it drives at it in different ways. So for instance, and I'm looking at 150-106, which sets forth criteria for the special use permit. If you go down to letter F, it says that the site layout with proposed vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian access, traffic circulation, parking, and loading facilities is sufficient for the proposed use and is safely designed for emergency vehicles. That's one. But if you look up at or letter A rather, it really speaks to what I was suggesting earlier, is that the location and size of the use, the nature and intensity of the operations involved, conducted or connection with it, the size of the site in relation to it, and the location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it are such that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it's located. I think that drives at what it is that you're asking.
Yeah,
so
I think my thinking process is completely in sync with that. Right. And then furthermore, it makes sense to me that the applicant in an area like this has the opportunity to impact that infrastructure, certainly within the site, and connecting from whatever the infrastructure changes that the applicant makes to that particular, to the rest of the infrastructure that services that zone. However, in certain cases, like roads and the safety of the roads and the crookedness of the roads and the miles per hour speed limit that is associated with those roads, the applicant really does not access roads to the area. The applicant does not have the capability to change that structure, right? So therefore, there's a logic here, at least in my mind there is, that leads to certain conclusions.
Well, I would urge you not to prejudge the application. I think that at this point, like the board is, as I said, is still reviewing information and is also, has an obligation under the State Environmental Quality Review Act to evaluate the environmental impacts associated with the project overall.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's a question that I'll pose to the board in just a minute about what we should do as our next step in the seeker process. But so meanwhile, the applicants and Dennis also brought up the need to look at the aquifer protection overlay criteria and the criteria for issuance of a water body permit. So those are things the board will need to discuss as we go a little bit further along in the process. But those also, both of those are very much related to the seeker determinations that we'll be making, which is probably a good segue to my next question to the board. So the public hearing was closed tonight. It's subject to an additional written comment period. But I'll ask the board for your opinion, and I'll also go back to Dominic and Dennis to see whether it would be appropriate for the board to authorize MJ to prepare a draft environmental assessment form parts 2 and 3 for the Willow Lake development proposal. And that question doesn't necessarily mean that everything that we will need to make those decisions on the environmental assessment form, may or may not be ready, but what we have done in the past when we've gotten to a point like this where a public hearing has been held and closed, we oftentimes will go the next step to authorizing the preparation of a draft EAF Part 2 for the board's consideration and review. And what we do then is we go through it point by point, and it's really kind of a good opportunity to address whether there is a need for more information on any of the areas in the environmental assessment form, or whether there is sufficient information to be able to, make decisions on each of the categories that we have to review. That's a long way to ask. Maybe we'll start with Dominic and Dennis. What do you think? Are we at a point where having a draft of the EAF Part 2 would be helpful for the board to start moving ahead?
It could be, so I certainly think that the board would be in a position to consider and start formulating its own opinions as to, the severity or not of various impacts that get identified in Part 2. But you do have the ability to have more written public comment for another 10 days, and you also ask the applicant to respond to the substantive comments that were raised tonight. So you may, benefit from hearing from the applicant as to their thoughts on various different issues that were raised tonight prior to preparing the Part 2. But I think that you may want to hear from the applicant on that particular point as to whether or not they want the board to consider what they have to say in response to the written and also public comment here tonight, and the written public comments that you've been receiving up to now, before reviewing a Part 2, or if they would like to press ahead with draft Part 2 as well as reviewing their anticipated submission for the March meeting.
What do you think, Dennis?
I think most of all of our comments have been addressed, the major ones being the traffic and stormwater. So I think it's appropriate this time that if the board feels comfortable that we can prepare a draft Part 2 and 3 for your consideration.
And the other thing for the board to consider is that by requesting or authorizing the preparation of a draft EAF Part 2, does not mean that the board would have to approve it at that next meeting, but that sometimes I've found it to be actually helpful to the board to sort of start focusing on certain environmental issues that might be more significant or more likely to be significant than others. And we usually have pretty good discussions when we do that. So just something to, to consider whether we should think about authorizing the preparation and then have a discussion at the March meeting. Or as Dominic also alternatively suggests, the possibility of waiting until after we've seen additional written comments and then authorize it.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think having the EAF Part 2 in front of us might help us get our ideas what the significant impacts could be. And if, something comes up, answers to the public comment that we think will change any of our minds, would be there for us. I think just drafting the EAF would help us. I think we're at that point where we need to move this forward one way or the other.
Any thoughts, Bob?
I heard something tonight. One of the people came up and made a comment about the dam on the property, and when it was last inspected, and that it's an important thing. It's a Schedule A hazard, I guess. So, and I'm just not. Is there an official thing of when it was last inspected?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it is a DEC regulated dam. The last inspection report was back in 2010 per the DEC records.
Okay.
There were some minor discrepancies that were corrected, and that report was submitted back to the DEC.
Because I'm just wondering, I thought there was, I guess, reading something that it was every 2 years it should be inspected.
Not for that hazard dam, for that classification.
Okay.
how often should it be inspected? So how often should it be inspected? Because you said 2010, that's 15 years ago.
We'd be happy to provide a new inspection of the dam to ensure its safety.
Please. All right.
I also heard about flooding. Was that taken into consideration? I don't remember flooding in that particular area, but then we've had Elm Street flood and a lot of other places flood over the years, so.
It's a great question. The design that we've done has a very robust stormwater system. There's 7 different stormwater management practices. They're detention tanks that work in series. So all of the new development and impervious areas that we're creating are all being routed through these systems that contain the water and slow the water and trickle it out at a slower rate than what's currently happening today. So there will be less discharge off-site when we're finished than there will be today.
Okay, so the flooding was from the Willow Lake Pond or from someplace else? Well, I heard somebody made a comment that we had flooding on Van Wyck, and it's a long road, but I don't know where the flooding was.
Yeah, we don't have a specific date or an incident to reference. We're happy to take that consideration from the public if they want to submit that in comment. We can certainly speak with the prior owners.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it could have been, some people have been around a long time, and it could have been 40 years ago.
But we're not sure. Regardless, it is something that we absolutely can look at. Also, just for the board's consideration and reminder that Willow Lake does sit in sort of a bowl, right? And so there is runoff coming from a variety of different sources. Our engineers have looked at that closely. And again, to repeat Zach's comment, we've taken that into consideration in the plans, and the runoff post our development will be significantly less than what is currently there.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of the applicant?
Sure.
One of the comments, or one of the elements of the comments, was that this nature of disruption, and that there was a certain level of disruption terminology associated with the transition from existing to build out, and then the follow-on level of disruption post build out when you have an ongoing concern. So do you guys have any kind of an idea of how long your build-out will take to get to the point where you consider this to be an ongoing concern, management by your operational teams, and you guys, partners, goes on to the next project?
So it's a multi-part question. I'm going to try and break it up. So first of all, the references to disruption, certainly an eloquently used reference to a marketing agency that my partner and I have owned for 20 plus years. Nothing to do with the site development or Willow Lake at all. They're completely separate entities. Regardless, the disruption comment, obviously we understand that construction and development of the site is going to naturally cause some disruption. It is going to happen in phases, not phased development, but meaning there's site work, then there's building of the buildings and the cabins and so forth. And so it will happen over time. We can certainly work to provide our responses to those comments and submit them to the board formally so you have a better understanding.
But you don't have like a plan that says 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm the project architect, Patrick Lesbo, for the record. We're looking at between 18 to 24 months of construction, and we've explored prefabricated structures for the cabins as well as most of the buildings. We're going to try to prefabricate as much as we can off-site, bring it on-site to eliminate as much time on-site as we can.
Okay, so one phase, right?
Yeah, the plan right now is to go through it in one phase. And a lot of the buildings that we've designed, as you can see, the cabins, we're using prefabricated systems. So the panels and everything are going to come in, be installed on site, installed just to limit the amount of traffic as much as we can to the site. Again, no matter what construction method we use, we're going to have impact. But we're trying to mitigate that like we've done with every other aspect of the project.
Great, thank you.
So after having that further discussion, what do we think about moving ahead with looking at a draft EAF Part 2 or holding off until we get a little bit more information?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have the benefit of the additional information personally, but if the board votes the other way, that's fine too, but I'd rather have the benefit of the written comment period and be able to hear that, and then at next month's meeting, consider the, whether to have that drafted. I think there was quite a bit of comment tonight. A lot of provisions in the code that I think this board should be looking at before next month's meeting as well. I think that would be a prudent use of our time. I think there's a lot for us to consider. I think if you have the EAF Part 2 and 3 drafted, authorize it tonight, and you have it at the next meeting, that's going to monopolize the whole discussion. I think with all the stuff that was discussed and considered, I think this board needs to really think about what was spoken, what will be coming via written, and really look at the code, especially the special use permit. My opinion.
All right, and actually building on that a little bit, just because we may not authorize the preparation of a draft EAF Part 2 tonight, doesn't mean that board members can't look at a blank draft and start sort of writing your own thoughts down on each category.
Absolutely.
And then we can actually discuss that and give MJ a little bit more direction before, sitting down to draft it. So, sounds like we're sort of, we've heard a little bit of viewpoints from both directions, but I think I'm kind of leaning towards what Anthony is suggesting, that we...
And I'm good with what Anthony's saying too. It wasn't as strong for me, but it makes sense, so
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Me as well.
All right. So we'll hold off on requesting the more formal drafting of an EAF Part 2. Board members will be responsible for kind of looking at some of those environmental issues, and based on things we heard from the public comments tonight and in the past, because there have actually been quite a few written comments already submitted. And then we'll wait to see the responses put together by the applicant team. Then at the March meeting, we can have a good further discussion on that all. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What I wanted to do was move ahead to the area variance referral that we got from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And my understanding is that the applicant team will be appearing before the ZBA at their next meeting, February, what is that, 17th or something like that?
Yes.
So let me just read that agenda item. Board to review and discuss the Town of Fishkill Zoning Board of Appeals referral of application number ZB 26-001, Willow Lake Partners Group LLC, area variances. Since the planning board hasn't really had a full discussion or even hearing specifically what the variances are that are proposed, why don't we take this opportunity for the applicant team to just kind of describe the requested variances. I know you did a pretty thorough job of putting together a document that was sent to the ZBA, and they've referred it to us, but it might help if you just kind of summarize it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first variance is related to the front yard setback. As the board may know, there is a detached existing garage and a detached dwelling. We're proposing a hallway to connect those two structures. Due to the location of the existing structures, that hallway triggers a variance for the front yard setback from both the lot line as well as the center line of the road. Those are the first two variances that we need. The third variance is the parking in the front yard itself. As we've noted throughout a lot of the thoughtful and careful planning that went into the site design, the parking being located in the front area of the site closest to the roadway is a benefit to reduce the overall impact and disturbance area on site. We're touching about 22 acres out of over 100. The fourth variance is related to the retaining wall height for those parking lots. As the board may remember, the existing site has quite a bit of slope in it. We have 4 valet parking lots. From left to right, they're tiered to follow the existing grade as much as possible. But due to some of the existing topography, very large exposed rock, the proper way to install those parking lots is by building up the grade with a berm, heavily landscaping and screening it, and then building those parking lots with retaining walls. The retaining wall height is also 4 feet higher than the retaining wall itself, and that is to self-contain any headlights from the cars themselves. So the height does appear slightly higher than the retained height. And the last variance is related to construction on steep slopes. Per the town code, steep slopes are defined as having a slope greater than 20% over a horizontal distance of 100 feet. There are about 55 acres of steep slopes over 20% on site. We are only proposing to disturb about 0.11 of those acres, and that relates to the proposed restaurant that is adjacent to Willow Lake, and there's just some steep slopes in there in order to install the tiered system in the waterfall.
Any questions, comments from board members so far? Taking a look at them, I have a few sort of preliminary thoughts. So the front yard setback to allow the valet parking lots in a front yard where parking is not permitted in a front yard. You know, possible impacts could have things like headlights shining on neighbors, noise impacts on neighbors in the vicinity of Van Wyck Lake Road, and whether it's possible to perhaps, for instance, reduce the size of the parking lots or move them back a little bit farther from Van Wyck Lake Road. So I know there's some discussion about things like that in the document that went to the ZBA. If you want to just sort of talk about that a little bit more, in a little bit more detail. For instance, what would be the possibility of perhaps further reducing the number of parking spaces in those lots, thereby, you know, further reducing the impact of the variance that would be necessary?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the first point first. The concern over headlights is the reason for the 4-foot parapet wall. The parking lots are also set back a decent amount from the property line, ranges from 25 to about 30 feet. Adjacent to the property also exists a large piece of town property that is in a conservation easement, so will always be undisturbed area, so the potential for adverse visual impacts from neighboring properties is slightly reduced by the fact that there is no neighbor along a significant portion of frontage on Van Wyck Road. In terms of the number of spaces, as you mentioned earlier, we are seeking a reduction waiver for the parking spaces. What we're proposing is basically the minimum that the site will need to function and serve the property. So reducing the parking further would be too restrictive for the property itself.
Well, and of course, those are things that the Zoning Board of Appeals will be discussing in a lot more detail than we're going to be discussing tonight. Then moving to the wall height variance, where a 6-foot wall is the maximum permitted in that area, and the retaining wall is proposed at 21 feet. That includes the 4-foot parapet. Probably visual impact and disturbance, grading impacts will be associated with that retaining wall. Can that wall height be reduced at all? Because that's a pretty high retaining wall.
It is. I'd like to note that 21 feet is at the very highest point. The majority of the walls range from about 8 feet to about 15 feet, including that 4-foot parapet. The 21-foot wall height is in the location where there's a very large existing boulder on site. And in order to avoid having to blast that boulder away, we had to build up the grade on top of it to be able to leave the rock where it is and still facilitate the parking in the front. The grade itself was already revised a couple of times during the preliminary planning process. And what we did is we actually bermed up the grade coming up to the wall and included landscaping to sort of hide that face of the wall as much as possible and back it into the site. We are restricted in the front where Willow Lake is, so there's only so much room between the roadway and the lake to facilitate those parking spaces.
Is there like a profile or cross-section of the wall, like showing how it does vary in height as it goes, you know, lengthwise along Van Wyck Lake Road?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
Is there a profile of the retaining wall in the site plan set?
There is. So the grading plans themselves include the wall heights, and specifically it even includes the top of the parapet elevation. So it has the retained wall height as well as the parapet. So on the grading plans, you can see what the height of that retaining wall is through the different sections.
So what sheet number would that be to make it easier for people to find it?
The grading plans are sheets 19 through 23. There were also a number of sightline renderings taken from different vantage points along the road. Those different sightline profiles that we've previously submitted included things like different views of the different parking lots, including some of the landscaping, as well as the growth pattern for the landscaping that was specifically selected, showing that the landscaping will mature and block the view of the retaining wall over time.
Okay. And then finally, the construction on steep slopes. So those are defined, I think, as you've described it, and from the town's code. That would be on slopes 20% or greater over a horizontal distance of 100 feet or more. That would be limited to a disturbance area of 0.11 acres, which is about 4,595 square feet. So at first I couldn't remember where that steep slope construction disturbance area would be, but then I saw in your document to the ZBA that it's in the vicinity of the restaurant, and it's shown, I guess, on sheet number 71, which is actually a steep slope plan, if I recall, looking through the sheet. It's a little bit hard to go through those site plan sets because there's an awful lot of site plan numbers, but I was able to find that. But I was just curious, a little bit more description of what's the nature of that area. Is it wooded? How many trees would have to be removed? Is there any kind of habitat that might be in that area that should be considered? And again, whether disturbance on that particular steep slope area might be able to be reduced or minimized somewhat.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we did provide a steep slope plan. I'm showing it up on the screen here. All of this kind of orange-pink color you see are just slopes in general that are over 20%. As you can see, the majority of the site disturbance was specifically located away from those slopes as much as possible. The only areas per town code where we exceed the 20% slope for more than 100 feet are these two green areas right here, which are adjacent to the water, which just is an existing steep slope. I'm not sure exactly how many trees are in there that will be removed, but I can have that answer for you next month. The disturbance itself will be temporary. The concern over disturbing steep slopes is, erosion control, all of which has been thoroughly provided with the submitted soil erosion sediment control plans. So the short-term temporary disturbance will be mitigated in terms of any potential slope disturbance and impacts to the Willow Lake, which is the downstream water body.
All right. Any questions or comments on having gone through those things from the board?
Just a quick, jog my memory. Is that to the left side of the gazebo that is on that ridge?
The steep, which variance piece are you talking about? The steep slopes?
The steep slope.
Yeah, it's immediately sort of in front of and to the left of that gazebo.
Got it.
If you're facing the lake.
Thank you.
And again, it's a very small area. We're talking about 0.1 acres of disturbance.
All right. Any other questions? I guess one thing we could do is send a memo to the ZBA thanking them for referring the matter to us, and then, you know, raising these as questions that we brought up at our meeting and asking them to look a little bit further into those things. So if the board would like to do that, I'd be willing to work with Debbie to put together a memo to the ZBA. Of course, that'll have to be pretty quick, right? Because they're
I'm closed, it's gonna have to be tomorrow, because we're closed Monday, unless you wanna come in early Tuesday. Actually, tomorrow morning, I'm not available at all. I've got some office relocation, so it's gonna have to be Tuesday morning.
Oh, that's right. Well, we could do that probably.
Okay. That's fine with me.
All right. So is that a consensus? I don't think we need a motion to do that, but
You can also ask the ZBA to, this is going to be recorded, they can listen to it.
well,
I
but
intend to do that on a regular basis.
I'm hoping that the ZBA will go a little bit further into those things than we had time to do.
Yeah, but this is said, here's what we've done, and there are the questions, and
Yeah, it's always good to put it down in writing,
I
in
do
my
share
mind.
that with them, just so you know.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's probably all we have for tonight. Any questions or any other information you'd like to give us at this point?
No, we thank you for your time.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So we will see you at the March meeting. All right, well, that brings us to a proposal that I will recuse myself again. So do you want to take over?
I'm actually going to suggest a 5-minute break, because it looks like there's a mass migration out of the room, and
Okay.
so it's 9:08 right now. We'll return at 9:13. All right, welcome back, everybody.
We want to talk about town.
Next item on the agenda is Duchess Manor Site Redesign and Restoration, Site Development Plan, Special Use Permit, and Historic Structures and Site Regulations, Certificate of Appropriateness, submission received by the Planning Department on January 28th, 2026. Chairman Jonathan Cantor has left the room. He has recused himself from this item. So with that said, I'd like to appoint our alternate planning board member, Vijay Gopal, as a voting member for this agenda item. A few other notes before we get started. At the January planning board meeting, we closed the public hearing with a written comment period to follow. That period has since passed. The public hearing is now officially closed. Over the course of the public hearing, this board did receive dozens of substantive comments for which we thank the public for their input. We also continue to receive written comment that our planning board secretary is receiving that are part of the project record. So we do get those as well. And we also received the stenographer's transcripts from the public hearings in December and January. At last month's meeting, the applicant did make a request that the board authorize the drafting of the EAF Part 2 and Part 3, which the board did not do. Instead, we requested the applicant respond to the public hearing comments by topic and provide a full submittal package, which they have done. We'll talk about those this evening, and we will also discuss whether to authorize the preparation of the draft EAF Part 2 and Part 3 this evening as well. And then one final note, on January 24th and 31st, members of the planning board did visit the project site. I believe it was 2 groups of 3. So with that, I'll ask the applicant to please come to the podium and start with an update of what has transpired since the last time we saw you.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you. Helen Mauch from Minster Mauch for the applicant, HHFT. I know it's been a long evening for you, so I will be brief. We are requesting tonight that the board conclude the environmental review for the Duchess Manor project. The record before you shows that the project would not have any significant adverse impacts, and we would like you to authorize the Part 2 and a draft negative declaration. As you know, we submitted a memo that responded to the comments from the public, a full set of updated drawings that showed an increased landscape buffer, less parking, preservation of more trees, and planting of over 300 new trees. Amy Casalo will walk you through the key responses to the public comments. But before she does that, I just want to acknowledge that the town's consultants had some minor comments to the last submission, most of which are not related to final secret determination and can be addressed during site plan review. But there are a couple of items in CPL's memo that we would like to respond to tonight, and I could do that now or wait until CPL and MJ take you through their memos.
Well, let's start with your presentation first, and then I'm going to go to MJ for their memo review, and then to CPL, and then once CPL goes through theirs, we can then kind of talk through the comments.
That's fine. That's fine. So I'm going to pass it over to Amy, and she'll take you through the deck presentation.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello again. Amy Casala. Thank you for joining us in the cold weather we had for the site visits, which you braved it.
It was a beautiful day.
It was sunny. It was sunny, but 15 degrees. Okay, so as we said, I'll just go really quick. All of this is new, but the proposal, or old, but the proposals to restore Duchess Manor with historic restoration, removing the additions back to the original building, and then adding all landscaping around the facility that would have public park space sort of function and some classroom space and public restrooms. We'll reconfigure the lot in the front. This is the restored space behind once the building footprints are reduced. And this is behind the building. Again, more space for just recreation. So before, after, and this is on the side where the restrooms are, and a little kind of garden space that could be used for a classroom or just a little gathering. So that's the development proposal. And again, this would be used as our staff office spaces. The first floor would be used as a visitor center, and then the parking and shuttle to bring people down to the trails at Breakneck. So the key themes we saw in the public hearing comments, you just wanted themes versus comment to comment, are these 5. So parking and traffic, buffers and screening, trees, environmental performance kind of characteristics, and then some of the operational details. So I'm just going to quickly walk through those 5 topics, and I think there's a combination here of just information answering those comments and also some changes and modifications we've made in response to those comments, and I'll try to call out which is which as we go. So for parking and traffic, sort of key thoughts are that we're making the existing traffic and parking patterns safer and more organized than the existing condition overall through the quarter, because again, this serving this overflow function with 9D, and then managing the parking for regular use and occasional overflow, and that's that concept of what's overflow versus what's really being used on a daily basis. And so again, this is the condition we've been working to solve, is down at Breakneck. We're cleaning that space up right now with the Breakneck connector, knowing that there will be additional parking demand, looking to accommodate that up here. And then shuttling people down so people are safely off the road, not walking in the road or parking in dangerous ways along the roadway as they have done historically. The total parking relative to how it had been previously used, we're actually lower. We have gone down a little bit. The original proposal was for 181. We're now at 167. So in the modifications, and I'll show you where they came out of, but we've taken the total count of parking spaces down a little bit in this current submission. The traffic study, there were a number of comments on the traffic study, but the traffic study itself found no significant adverse impacts, and the review by Fishkill's consultants concurred with that conclusion. This shows the planned parking locations that we have in the site plan, both right in front of the building as it currently exists and off to the side. Again, in the yellow area is the main parking supply. That is what's going to have daily use, both from staff and visitors. And only really because this is a outdoor recreation space, there's a seasonality to the use and really more, peak weekend days. So year-round weekends and weekdays, you'll see parking in the yellow. In the orange, it would really just be peak weekends. And then in the green, which is the grass overflow lot, you would see that's like the last one we would open up for use, and so it would be the least frequently parked. And the second theme was about buffers and screening. So calls to further expand the buffer to the south and retain more existing trees. We've done both of those things, and I'll just show how that happens. So we have done this kind of over the course of the total development, but also just in this last iteration. So the original site plan had this configuration for the parking. So that was in the dark gray, that's all paved parking. And so closer in the area here, I can use my cursor. All of this would have been a regraded hillside with parking there. We've pulled that up and away from neighbors to the south and put it in the existing lot location for the, again, the regular everyday parking. And then this is seasonal, which was really in those peak seasons of May, June, and then the fall peak foliage seasons. So these are some of the explorations as we tucked that space in. After we did that move, we've continued to move and condense that footprint. So you see in July the footprint, followed by the November footprint where it was much thinner and added more buffer space. We went from a 20-foot buffer to a 40-foot buffer. And now we've further expanded that buffer on the western side towards the river, closer to the homes there. You see it's a 45-foot buffer, and then it gets wider as it approaches 9D, and which is more of the view shed for the adjacent neighbors. To an 82-foot buffer. To do that, we had to reduce parking, so we had about 17 spots come out of that location. And we did take one more spot out of the gravel area here in order to save a tree, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So trees. So the revised plan, we we're asked to keep more of the existing trees so that there's more day one presence in terms of the plantings instead of newly planted trees. We are planting between 300 and 350 new trees, and those trees will support biodiversity. We've selected a plant palette that matches basically the oak tulip forest of the park preserve across the street, and we're trying to pull that down off the mountain. So the prior plan, the red dots show tree removals. The greens were trees that were being kept. And now, and I can go back and forth in this if it's helpful, less red. So we're keeping more of those trees. So again, before, after. And those were evaluated, you know, some moves we were able to make, changing some of the drainage, widening those buffers, just accepting that some of those trees are in sort of at the end of their life cycle, but they have a few years left, so we'll leave them until their time comes. And in the meantime, other trees will be able to grow in. Because we're planting lots of trees, so this is new trees coming in that are over 4 inches of caliper or higher. So we aren't putting all just little tree sticklets in. There are going to be some substantial trees placed into this planting strategy. And so at the total end of day, this will be the tree plan. So that's looking at about 400 trees on site. And again, closer to the house, it's using this forest edge, so you have some flowering trees like red buds and dogwoods, and then in the more, you know, expanded area of the site, we're pulling that oak tulip forest. That's what's at the park preserve. So all native plants, and that will, you know, have different functions. Some have berries and they're good for pollinators or birds, and that's sort of the mix we're pulling in. Third theme is environmental performance. We'll note that we are reducing the impervious surface from the existing condition with the proposed development and making a number of moves to improve the habitat and ecosystem health. So this is the existing condition, and obviously the building components that we are taking down are all impervious surface. So when you remove those, you gain a lot of space to work. So this shows the statistics. So in the total new site plan, it's 0.14 acres less impervious surface than the existing condition. And then what are we putting in? Right now it's just a standard lawn, grass lawn with some ornamental species. We'll be planting in the bioswale, which is the drainage area that goes along the side and down to the back of the property. Would have plants that can get wet and dry and handle that condition well, like a Joe Pye weed. And then behind the building, the restoration meadow that we've talked a lot about has a mix of, you know, native meadow. This is a rendering that shows sort of how that might be in the future. And a note, this is the space, there was a memo in your packet speaking to the ways we're using targeted herbicide treatments of invasive species as we prep this space, which is currently overrun with invasives, for a restoration planting of a wildflower meadow. So you have hopefully enough detail about what's being used, and I'll just augment that we are also using other means. It's not to say that that's the only thing we're doing to combat invasives. There's been targeted mowing. We use mechanical means wherever we can, or in the future after we get, so the Japanese knotweed, for example, once that's brought under control enough, you could place black plastic on that, and that can get it the rest of the way. But so this is just sort of based on best practices and the species that are present, and there's different levels of what you need to do in order to combat them. Once they're under control, which takes maybe 2 years, then you have the planting, those native plants should be able to win that battle, and you can cease treatment. It's just really about getting them under control enough that a restoration planting can be successful. Theme 5 is the operational details. So hours of operation was raised, lighting and security, shuttle frequency. So hours of operation are dawn to dusk. We have a lighting plan that's in the submission. That's been through the analysis of candles, and it meets all of the regs of the town. So this is complying, the lighting plan complies with your rules. And then we have some signage. There's some curiosity about what signs we're using. This is part of the palette that we have. So this is the gateway sign on the roadway. There'll be smaller directional signs as you drive into the driveway that tell you, like, the shuttle goes this way, and then, you know, where you can park. There would be a gate here to stop people from driving down unless we opened it on a peak day, and directional signage that'll take you to the bathroom. So there's a whole suite, and hopefully that's enough detail, though we're happy to provide more in the site plan process. And then about the parking and shuttle system, it's drive-in. There's these little pay kiosks, so you can do that with your by license plate, and somebody can come around and scan and see if you paid. This also has a mobile app feature, so if you're at Breakneck and you can't find parking, and you can look at the app and it'll say, you know, spaces available still at Duchess Manor, and you can come up and know predictably that you can park there. And as you're driving, you predictably know there's no spaces at Breakneck, so you don't have to go sharking around in there. So again, we're trying to clean up that driving behavior. And then the shuttle vehicles, this smaller Sprinter van style shuttle, and it would just zip between, in the near term, right as we're opening, this would be just serving between Duchess Manor and Breakneck. So if the lot's full, you go and park at Duchess and you can hop on the shuttle and go down. Round trip is about 5 to 7 minutes, so it's really a quick lead time, so no one should worry about waiting.
What are you going to do during peak times?
That is peak times. I think we have plans for 2 shuttles, so one could be going, and they can be going back and forth. And that was that. Those were the 5 themes.
Do you have plans on lighting going down the hill eventually? Was that in this plan?
It's a dawn to dusk facility. So for the larger project, which would be the trail connection in the future, we're really only lighting around the parking areas, bathroom facilities, more for security things. If you're coming off of your hike in the dusk hours, you want to know where you can find your car. For security, people can visually inspect near the bathroom facilities, make sure no one's lurking and hanging around there. So, but on the park places itself, including the trail, it's not lit because it's a dawn to dusk facility, so we'd be closing that down.
Are the shuttles free service?
We're contemplating that, yes, because we want to incentivize its use. So it also serve people arriving by train. If they came up and they got off at the Breakneck station, they could come up, visit the visitor center, and then go get a ride back to the train to go home.
So the shuttle service is completely free, basically?
Yes, right. So we are charging for parking that subsidizes the shuttle.
Okay.
God bless.
Any other comments on the presentation? All right. I do have some comments. I'll get to those later. I just wanted to see if there were any comments specifically on the presentation before we go. I'm not hearing any, so with that, just to keep things moving, I will ask Dennis Lynch to review the MJ engineering memo from February 9th.
Yep, I'll go through. Most of our comments are very, very brief. There's some comments regarding the grading, just some additional spot elevations to make sure we meet the ADA requirements. Some minor comments on the landscaping, and then on the drainage and the SWIP. We again just noted that before any disturbance, they'd have to submit NOI or notice of intent with the DEC to get their coverage, and then prior to any CO, there would be a maintenance agreement and an easement to any stormwater facilities. For the most part, that's all of our comments, and as mentioned by the applicant, a lot of that can be addressed as part of the site plan approval.
Yeah, what was the comment about the landscaping in particular?
I believe it was the species, it was number 40 on page 7. It was about the type of mix for the shrubs. It was saying actually it was too many trees that were there, plantings that were there, and that they might be able to space it out.
But this is at the main entrance area specifically.
Correct, yes. And it was just a concern about the vehicles entering and exiting to make sure that they maintain a proper site distance.
Okay. All right. Any comments for Dennis? No? All right. We'll go to Liz Axelson for CPL memo dated February 4th.
I did go through a lot of the public comments and checked a couple of items, anything that I thought needed to be, addressed. I put in the memo. I had previously indicated that the lighting plan complied with the regs, and I rechecked that one again too. I did have a question about the use of selective herbicides, and it was more like whether there was going to be pesticide use or if there were going to be other kinds of ecological restoration work or other planned methods to be employed along with herbicide use, and it sounds like that is the approach. So that was helpful clarification. And then the public had commented quite a few times about worrying about people trespassing onto their property. And so I made a suggestion on page 3 to add signage where the trails, benches, or other site improvements are near those site boundaries. Just not like, get off our property or, some kind of a gentler message, just to advise them not to go beyond the boundaries of the site, basically. Because people may not know when they're walking around the site where it is if they're on a walkway. So, and then let's see. I took a look at the landscaping again and the parking layout, and a 20-foot buffer was required right up in front for landscaping along the main parking area, so that's in place. And it looks like the parking lines up with previously existing parking. So I looked at initially in the beginning and again observed that the plans have consistently tried to use spaces that were already disturbed and work from there, which I think is a good approach in this regard. I have a comment where I do bring out the fact that according to zoning section 150-159A, that parking should not be developed within the required front yard. And the intent of this standard is for new buildings to be placed closer to the street. That is a concept in that part of the zoning, to try to bring the building up to the street, put the parking behind.
So like more intended for like a new development
In a new development, right. So I didn't feel that it really pertained in this case, and they already had an existing disturbed area. So what I'm recommending in comment number 14 is that the planning board may wish to consider a waiver, including with supporting reasoning, which I assumed that the applicant's folks could provide. This is in relation to section 150-159F. And that would allow the first 3 rows of parking in the access lane to be located in the front yard. So that's my recommendation about how that could be squared away. Because I can't really see how a 100-foot buffer in front would make any sense.
You're going to put the parking somewhere.
Right, exactly.
It's already disturbed.
It is already disturbed. So those were my main comments, and then I had been reading through the public commentary, and concerns were expressed about the comprehensive plan update.
Liz?
Oh, sorry. Plans,
Welcome
trying to
back.
juggle my glasses and the microphone. Plans comments were concerned about that things were not consistent with the comprehensive plan update, which I kind of thought, well, it didn't sound right to me. So I did take a look at the comprehensive plan update from 2023, and there are a couple different goals. Goal A, connect people and places. So I've written them into the memorandum, and it talks about encouraging public spaces and enhancing quality of community life. And then CPU Goal C, create great places for people and animals, including parks and trails that provide opportunities for active and passive recreation, which I think I want to emphasize that because I know people who are seniors maybe can't drive quite as much or maybe used to hike but still want to be outside. But to be able to go to a place like this, park your car, take a little walk around, and just see the Hudson River and look at the mountains. So I think that passive aspect is important here on this particular site. Emphasize scenic and historic stewardship. Well, this goes right along with that because they're preserving a space and reusing it. And there's discussion in that particular objective about trying to bring new uses to older buildings and historic structures. And then goal I, create and enhance gateways. This site, in my mind, being improved here kind of adds to the overall gateway of people coming from the south into town, seeing beautiful homes and yards on the sides, and seeing the manor refurbished and re-landscaped and being an active site. So that's my little blurb about the comprehensive plan update. That's it.
Appreciate it. Any comments for Liz pertaining to her memo? All right, so with that, at this point, I do want to ask the board, I want to go kind of down the line. Obviously, we've had the benefit of public hearing comments. We have an updated full plan set. I would like to give each of the board members an opportunity to provide any additional comments that they have. So I'll open it to everybody first.
I still have some concern about the amount of parking. I know that they keep talking that this is going to be overflow parking. I think that's going to be used often because what's going to happen is people are going to be coming up, and I would just figure for myself, if somebody's coming up and they want to see the area, if I'm going to bring them somewhere, I'm going to say, all right, I know where there's a visitor center, there are food trucks, there's a bathroom, this is the perfect spot, this is where I'm going to go. Everybody's going to go there first. So I believe that overflow is going to happen all the time. People are going to go there first and then park somewhere else. So I really believe with the amount of parking, I don't think it's that quick that we can just go neg deck. I think we have to look at the impacts that are going to happen to the neighbors because I think there will be adverse impacts that we have to look at. So that's my first part. Second, I keep talking about the uses, and I know that applicant has told us this is a multi-use development. I think the uses are great. I just want to say this, I think the project's a good idea. But when I look at it, I go, all right, we have the visitor center, we have the offices. I could see those uses in the RB district. But when it comes to the parking lot part of it, because they talk about parking lot, they talk about the parking areas, and they say they fall within the recreational and cultural activities and philanthropic and charitable institutions, which are uses allowed in the by special use permit in the RB district. I think that's a stretch. I don't see that. I don't see a parking lot falling into that RB district permitted principal uses. So right now, my feeling is that that part of it doesn't fit in this district. I don't see parking lot as one of the permitted uses there. So, and I know, I think the AKR, I think it was the, when they were responding to public comments, they talked about the purpose of this. The purpose of the project is to provide new permanent staff offices, a visitor center, along with a parking lot intended to serve existing recreational trail use in the area while helping to alleviate existing parking shortages. So, to me, they're trying to put parking to alleviate something else, but I don't see that as part of the RB district. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't see that fitting in this district. And that is one of the uses that is being proposed here.
Can I comment?
Sure.
I drive down 9D on these peak times,
Mhm.
and they're parked all up and down 9D. So you're going to have to get these cars somewhere.
I
And that's
understand that.
the big part of what I see. It's also going to be, in the future, connected to the trail. And you're going to need the people to park there to go to the trail. I do have some personal comments about the historical house when I look at the diagram of what they're going to have inside, and I haven't seen anything there for the public. I see meeting rooms, but meeting rooms are not for the public. I know what you could probably, that was just a sketch, probably an architectural sketch of how to fill in. So I was going to have some comment on that. But I see we have to alleviate the parking. When we talk to even other people who are going to be connecting this is going to be a pass-through to a lot of people. All right? I don't know how many people are going to, of the mass amount, are going to, if you have a friend coming in and you're going to go there, you're not going to be there for a long time. So that's part of coming in and going out. You know, I don't see the parking. People are going to go there and maybe for 3 hours, maybe for 4 hours. Very few people are going to go there, except the ones who are going up the mountain, and they're going there all day. All right? So you have, it's a give and a take, Felix.
I don't argue that it's
And
the
you
utility.
keep on saying parking lot, and I believe it's going to be, right now, 9D is a parking lot. From
Okay,
Cold Spring, all right,
Fred,
all the way up.
I don't debate the utility of it. I understand the utility of it, but the question is, should that neighborhood bear all of this? Right?
But
I mean,
how big is the neighborhood?
Neighborhood's big enough, you got people living right next to it, right?
With 3 houses, 4 houses.
More than that, right, Fred?
Not
Yeah,
effective.
If I may comment here as well, I think Felix is on to a point. I think clearly, from my perspective, what we've got here is a gateway to the trail. It's a gateway to the recreational opportunities offered by the hiking down on both sides of 9D, both today as well as what happens in the future. And I think you've made a clear point in your presentation that you intend to alleviate the parking issues that currently exist on Route 9, and that you intend to take care of the required traffic via shuttles, foot traffic via shuttles, and so on. So clearly, you're connected to the opportunities offered by the Hudson Valley Trail and the upcoming trail system. So this whole segmentation question becomes, in my mind, a technical issue. The bottom line is we have to deal with the parking. So the parking, and I think you've done a yeoman's job in terms of addressing a lot of the issues associated with the parking and as well as the comments. Now, Felix's point is, does this kind of parking belong in this kind of a district? And that's a separate question. And that is something that I think we have to deal with. Dominic, I'm not by any means the expert on this, but clearly, in my mind, 167 parking, knowing what I know from the Mohonk area, from the Adirondack area, that is going to be probably okay for a year, and then will attract, in the future, it will attract more people. So it'll become a reservation system, and you'll have, the recreational opportunities abound in this area. So people will take advantage of them once you provide this kind of an opportunity for them. So, and it's necessary, and frankly, I support it. However, the technical question is, from a zoning perspective, does this belong in this area? So, and that's part of what I call the technical question associated with segmentation. So, that I don't know.
I do want to stay on the parking discussion, though. I was kind of looking at it from the perspective of how can this be mitigated, and I did see some things in the presentation about use of the lower lots being at certain times of the year. You know, the applicant had stated in the package that the intent was for the lower lot to be closed in the winter. I think having a note on the plans that specify when that lot would be closed would be helpful. I know there was, I think I saw the lawn overflow was only going to be used on peak season weekends, May to June, and I think it was September to November. And then I believe the lot next to it had, there was another, it was just weekends. I don't know if that slide is available, but I think, you know, putting something, yeah, I think you had it a second ago.
Did I? Sorry, I'm not going to find it when I'm trying.
But I guess the point being, you know, have that, like the gravel lot, it said peak weekends. If something could be put on the plan that says that's only going to be used on peak weekends during the summer, I think, you know, then okay, it's not going to be used certain months of the year. That grass area, the one that's closest to the southern lot line, if that's only going to be used, you know, May, June, September, November, I think like if the applicant can put that kind of restriction on that usage, at least the public will be aware, hey, this is not going to be used year round, that this is just going to truly be for, you know, peak season. I think that, at least in my mind, is a mitigation element. I don't know if that satisfies other concerns, but I think putting something to an effect of this is when it's going to be used and this is when it's not going to be used, at least in my mind, would be good to have on the plan and helpful for our consideration as a part of an environmental determination.
Sure. I mean, certainly not in the winter. We were brave enough to go out, but most people aren't, and we can't plow it, so.
Yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying. I mean, going there and seeing the property, now I see, like you said, like that upper flow area, overflow area is gravel, which can be used like a certain time, but like down below in the grass area, if it's a rainy April or whatever, stuff like that, I mean, that will not be very conducive for people trying to park.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is like, this will attract more people, and the problem is I'm just wondering too, like, how long did it take for the people to understand about the parking system and the apps and everything else? Because you got a lot of people that are not tech savvy and just obtuse to that and think, oh, there's a parking lot and I'm going to go there, and you know, maybe a basic thing now, you got a reservation system. I just was wondering how long it's going to take for people to understand that, because they're going to want to go. And I drove up and down 9 that day when I came there, and I went to see all the work that you guys were doing up at Breakneck and trying to widen the thing. And I guess there's going to be a future train
Station. Well, there is, I mean, there's platforms there now,
platform,
but they're,
yeah, that's going to
we'll
be
put in
there. And I
platforms.
saw that, you know, the moving of the poles and trying to, because it is, I mean, that Route 9D, you know, the enforcement is going to be the big issue of who's really going to enforce people still not parking on the road.
Right.
Whether it's Fishkill or if it's the state police, you know, I have those questions. I just get to the nitty gritty. Who's going to police that? You know, like to make sure that, because that's what the concerns of
And
the
some-
residents.
Right, and some changes that, so down at Little Stony Point, the Washburn lot, that was redone a couple of years ago. And when it was under construction, people started parking on both sides of the road in a way they hadn't historically done. When it was opened, we did like concentrated with multiple departments. I think the state helped and the locals, and they did concentrated enforcement for I think 2 weekends, and then it sunk in, and they didn't have problems after it. So I think we'd have to do a similar strategy where you really hit it hard from the beginning in terms of enforcement and make that behavior change. And then as far as the app, we haven't, we'll have a rollout, right? It's not just going to be like, and today it opens, but it'll have a whole rollout trying to educate people about this system and download the app and make sure you're ready to like track it and how this is a new tool for you to use so you know where to park. So what that looks like, we haven't totally, gotten down to, a full written thing, but we will have a strategy and try to, have enough runway with it so that people are aware of it before the opening day.
I also suspect, based on experience, that if you intend to block a parking area when traffic requires it, you'll get a backlash from the public. And people driving an hour to go hiking and they can't park, but yet they see an existing park. And they have their kids, and they'll look for somebody to complain to. And you see that in the Adirondacks all the time now. And the problem is parking will then start again where you don't want it. And then you have to put poles up to alleviate the parking. People pull off the road, and it becomes a problem. So this is an attempt to solve that problem up front, but you just have to have growing plans. And as a planning board, maybe we have to say, you have to come back to us if, in fact, you intend to increase parking, or if it goes past the existing plan, you need another plan approval, or I don't.
They would have to, if anything changed. If anything changed, they would have to.
Yeah.
They would have to come back.
Yes, as the board may be aware, the secret process for the Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail itself has concluded. So New York State, the Office of Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation adopted a finding statement completing the secret process for that project. And so, based on that, it's clear that the intention is to move forward with the trail itself and the improvements that they can, and I believe that there's been announcements to that effect. And this board doesn't have jurisdiction over the trail. What you're evaluating is the improvements to the Duchess Manor site. And one of the conditions that was laid out in the finding statement for the trail itself by New York State was that there would be a post-opening traffic study that would evaluate how effective various different things are happening. You're obviously not near approval yet because you're still evaluating whether or not even to prepare a Part 2 EAF. And by the way, I think it would be a good idea to prepare that Part 2 EAF because you need to make direction as to whether or not this project has minimized its environmental impacts associated with the manor. And bear in mind, you're not evaluating the trail, you're evaluating the manor itself. I understand that they're related, but nonetheless, seeker has concluded for the trail. And if you get to a point where you're comfortable making an approval for the Duchess Manor, I'm telling you right now that my recommendation would be that the town of Fishkill should also require an analysis, perhaps at several intervals after opening. So 1 year after opening, 2 years after opening, to evaluate how the site is functioning, how the parking is functioning, whether or not any additional measures need to be implemented at that time to minimize impacts on the surrounding area. So the board has done this before. It is for complex projects that it is something that the board has the authority to require. And I put that out there because I think it's something that you should ultimately consider, because it's wrong to think about this project being approved and then out of the gate, and then, you know, you don't have any ability to verify that it's working as intended.
And isn't it true that a lot of projects that people do, they put in for future parking, which is sort of what the grass parking would be overall?
Yeah, I think, you know, there has certainly been a preference and a tendency for projects to basically what they call shadow parking,
Yeah.
you know, where it's shown on the plan as it's reserved for future use, and that it, you know, could be developed if needed. That's not really what this particular applicant's doing. They have overflow parking, you know, in the grassed area, which, you know, couldn't be parked on this time of year with the conditions that are out there, but could be utilized in other times of the year.
Also, this project is in the middle of a part of the project. So most people don't want to start in the middle. They want to go to one of the ends, which is going to be a big concern with the village of Cold Spring and the city of Beacon.
You're absolutely correct.
A lot of people,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I ride the Heritage Trail in Orange County,
Yeah.
and it goes all the way from Harriman to Middletown. I don't like starting in Goshen. You know, I want to get on in Harriman and ride it. You know, maybe ride to Goshen, maybe ride to Middletown, turn around, come back.
Well,
But that's me. So.
but you're local. And a lot of things that people were saying, they're going to come from all over the world to come here, so.
Fair.
The only good facility is, of course, they have the bathroom there.
Yeah.
So if it's midway, they got a place to go.
Yes, but that, to be honest, what you're concerned with is really key to doing a post-opening traffic analysis, because then you're seeing how it's actually functioning. And if any additional mitigation measures need to be applied at that time, either on-site with how they're controlling, you know, the parking area and the usage of the site, or potentially off-site as well.
Well, and just picking back on what you just said, though, in a year from now, I don't know how much, or 1 year where it's completed, how much it's going to be used, because the trail isn't completed yet.
Yeah, and I was just throwing, it could be whatever interval that the board thinks is appropriate and is rationally related to the project. That's an excellent point, because perhaps it should be at several intervals after this facility is open, but also including when the full trail, you know, has reached its completion thereafter. So,
Because I think this is only going to take care of the breakneck climb itself.
That's the design. That's
Yeah, I
what we've
understand.
scaled it
That's all it's
to.
going to take care of. And then you do have a limited amount, because if you have 500 people on that breakneck trail on a weekend, they're going to be fighting over each other, because it's not that wide, you know, it's not like it's a walk, you know, to something. You're going up.
And that's why the larger project that's under the other environmental review, there is additional parking as part of that project scope in that environmental review. And that's for the trail visitors, right? Whereas this is really scaled to who's coming here right now just because they want to hike those trails.
Yeah, and I think that's why I had the comment you had here, the use of the weekends. I think if the plan could say that was intended, those overflow lots were intended for holidays and weekends, I think that would really just, at least people are going to know the weekdays it's going to be quiet, you know, down there. It's for weekends and holidays. I think that would be helpful. I mean, it's what the intent is for the overflow lot anyway, weekends. So I think, having that on there so that the expectations of the nearby public would, I think that would be helpful.
Can I ask another question? I was just looking at your update.
Mhm.
When we were out there, you were saying you were going to move the south parking lot from where it is, or are you going to leave it, you know, south driveway?
Oh, behind,
Where
behind the building?
Huh?
Oh, the driveway.
Yeah.
That is, we have to widen that one. You mean this,
You indicated it.
oh, the 14 Chorus driveway.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be right here.
It's where the trees are, right where the,
Yeah,
basically where the
that driveway would be
Yeah,
right
so
here.
you said you were going to move that?
That's
Now,
here.
how are you, if you have the gate then, how are you going to get to the back building? I'm just confused, because you're going to move the,
Because staff would be able to go through.
Yeah, the
And their
staff would.
parking is on this side, so they wouldn't be, staff parking is currently here, and this is used as our.
how do you get to it if you can't?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, it's,
You'd be able to go down this driveway. So the gate would be closed to the general public, but a staff arriving to work in the morning could go through and then to park here. They wouldn't be parking in this lot, they'd be parking over here.
Okay.
so there's just one driveway into the site.
There is in the future just one driveway into the site.
Yeah.
Because they're getting rid of the other road.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, are you going to have a code to get by that gate?
Or a little swipey, yeah.
Okay. Can I have a few?
Speak that into the microphone, Fred.
Don't do it, Fred.
so I know we spent a lot of time about the parking, other comments from board members?
I did have about the inside of the building, how you're going to set that up for the public.
So the big building, or big room to the right, so when you walk into the manor, to the left would be a room that's currently like a coat closet / storage. That would be used as a reception area. So there would be somebody there ready to greet you as you walk in, answer any questions, maps and information, buy a bottle of water if you forgot one, and then you could go back out. The hallways in front of you, there's a room to the right that goes from the front of the building to the back of the building.
With the big windows on? Are there going to be still the windows in the back?
Well, no, because
Those
that's
are
the
all gone. That
ballroom.
building's gone.
But there would be new windows in the back that take you out to
Out to the view,
restored porch in the back of the building.
because that's the view.
That's the view. And then to the right building, the room there, that would be a flexible space. So we show it with a boardroom, I think, in some of the architectural drawings. But the idea is that that's sort of a very flexible table that can be broken up and moved and folded up and put aside. It would only have to be set up for meetings if you were having a meeting, but the rest of the time you could have a 3D map of the trail, and you could have other interpretive materials around the room. So most of the time it's there as just sort of an interpretation room, but it could be set up for a meeting if a group wanted to use it.
Okay, because one of the things I was thinking, maybe if it's a visitor center, you would be having some period furniture or anything like that. Was that considered?
Well, we
Because
have,
people have seen this.
Fred, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
What?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Guys, come on, Fred.
Boy, sorry.
we have not picked out furniture yet.
Okay.
Other comments from board members? All right, I had a comment. I know, I saw the document prepared by David Junga about the herbicides, and you talked about that a little bit. The letter talks about use of herbicide in the meadow behind Duchess Manor. I didn't see any area on the plan, in the plan set that indicates like a specific, like,
Restoration meadow.
like an
We could-
area or like.
We
you
could
know,
annotate.
I definitely would like it, like a clear annotation on the plan that says, hey, this is the area, this is where the application would be limited to. I know the memo talks about it, but I think having it on the plan set, and then the memo kind of talked about the herbicides that they intended to use, and I think it'd be even more helpful, you know, the document says it fits within regional and DEC guidance. If the notes can say, these are the 3 herbicides that are going to be used in this polygon area on the plan, I think that makes it abundantly clear down the road, hey, these 3 herbicides are the only 3 that are going to be used. They're going to be used right here, nowhere else. And then I think
And again, hopefully on a diminishing basis, right?
That too as well,
Short
but I
term.
think just like, if it could be like, I know the document describes it, but I think like having that like annotation on the plan, and like the area documented. And I think the same with pesticides, so David Junga's memo talked about herbicides, didn't talk about pesticides
Yeah.
and what types and where that may be.
We haven't used pesticides, so but pesticides are more, herbicides are a category of pesticides, just part of the same thing, so they're kind of used interchangeably sometimes, but we've only been treating with herbicides on the selected invasive species.
And I don't know, maybe to me, or to like a lay person, just having something on the plan that says, hey, this is what's going to be used, and here's where it's going to be used, and it's limited to that. I think the more that could be like on the plans, at least for me, is helpful. And I think in terms of even enforcement or potential enforcement down the road, if something were to be, I know it was a concern of the public, where it was going to be used, what's going to be used. I think the document we got helps, but like that, like really drilling down to where it's going to go is going to be a big help, especially like as we look at the EAF Part 2 and Part 3. I think that helps in the environmental consideration, at least for me.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time talking about the parking, but I know the buffering on the southern side of the property was a comment that had come up. I did see the updated plans. I did look at the trees that were being proposed. I know there are some additional existing trees that are staying in that area. I know there's a section of code that talks about the buffer being 20 feet in width and having a mix of evergreens and spacing and arrangement as in the discretion of the planning board that will effectively screen the activity of the lot from the neighboring residential area. So I looked at it, I'm seeing what's remaining, what they're putting in, and the buffer width is increased. I feel pretty good about it. I know it was a comment that came up. I don't know if the board has any thoughts on that as well. But yeah, if not, then, I think it was an improvement from the last plan for me, and I did look at where the coniferous trees and the evergreens were, because I'm, anything that's like deciduous, I'm like, all right, well, you're gonna be able to see into the property. So I was kind of looking at that, it looked good to me, so I did want to bring that up. And then I think Fred kind of touched a little bit on the architectural plans. I did take a look at that as well. I didn't have any specific comments or issues about the architectural plan, but it is something that the board has to consider as part of the certificate of appropriateness. So I hope if there's any comments from the board members that if they don't have any tonight, that they, be prepared to speak to it at the next meeting. But that was something I looked at as well, and is a part of this application that is not traditionally part of all of our applications. So, are there any further comments from board members? Okay, not hearing any. So with that, I know Dominic kind of touched on it. The recommended action for the board this evening would be to authorize the drafting of the EAF Part 2 and Part 3. I know there was a discussion at the very beginning about potentially considering drafting of a determination of significance, but I guess my opinion would be, my suggestion would be for the board to authorize the draft EAF Part 2 and Part 3, see where that leads us before we recommend a drafting determination of significance, but I do want to get your thoughts on that.
That seems prudent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's good for the board to have something to throw darts at. Whatever gets drafted,
As long as it's not me.
as long as it's not Dominic. You can throw darts at me if you want, but I'll duck. But the point is that you may not agree on whether something's small or not, and I think having it down on paper makes you say, wait a minute, I'm not happy with that. And I think it'd be a good discussion for the board.
Okay, so, it sounds like the board's in lockstep with that suggestion. Before I see if there's a motion, I'll just ask the applicant team if there's any other comments, questions for us.
I did want to just talk about the zoning code for a minute, because that was mentioned in one of CPL's comments. And we also looked at that section of the code on the 100-foot setback in the front. And when we looked at that section, we concluded that it does not apply here. Now, but for a different reason. So a close reading of that section indicates that it applies in residential districts. So I would ask council and CPL to take a close look at that.
And I don't think we need an answer to that tonight, so maybe we can, if we can ask Dominic to take a look at that as well and see if it's something that we should consider as a waiver or something that this board needs to consider as a waiver, but yeah, I think that would be helpful on it.
But wasn't this the parking lot in there not conforming use already?
Well, there is a zoning amendment, you know, the part of that is part of the process that is necessary. So this board's lead agency for seeker, you know, but you're not in a position to actually grant any kind of approval for the project, perhaps except for the certificate of appropriateness, because the project also requires from the town board discretionary legislative action of changing the zoning from, I think it's R14, or it's to the RB.
R2A to RB.
Correct. And so the project as proposed right now, it depends on that zoning amendment as well from the town board. So
which is
the action that's before you is...
So which means that you're going to see us after we get through SECRA. So which is what we're attempting to do and asking you to do by authorizing preparation of a Part 2 and a Part 3. Our request was for preparation of a draft negative declaration based upon the robust record before you, which even taking into account the 167 proposed parking spaces does not show a potential significant adverse impact, not on lighting, not on water quality, not on herbicide use, and so we feel you have that record before you to allow you to make that determination. Obviously, you're going to do what you want to do, but we are trying to move this project forward. Just sticking with zoning for a minute, though, the RB zoning district is restricted business district. Recreational use is a use that is authorized by special permit in that district, and this is a recreational use for the community, to connect the community to the natural resources that you have here and to each other. And so there is parking associated with that use. But so I would submit that this is absolutely an appropriate use in the RB district.
I would say this, that parking is always an accessory use. The way you guys have it, you have it as a principal use. So it's a difference. At least
I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree that it's the principal use on this site.
It definitely is one of them, because you've listed it as one of the things that in your, one of your letters that you guys submitted. And it says, in one of them it says, along with a parking lot intended to, so parking lot is one of the things that are in there. You have a visitor center, office staff, and you have a parking lot. And parking lot, the way it's being put here, it even says the proposed parking lot will provide improved safety for visitors to these trailheads. The proposed parking lot, it's not part of the visitor center. It's not part of the office staff, the staff office. It's a separate entity in itself. So the way I'm looking at it is I see three principal uses: the visitor center, the office, and a parking lot. I don't see the parking there being an accessory. They have accessory for the for the visitor center and for the office staff, but then I also see, because if you just need parking for the visitor center and the office, you only need like 40 spots, 50 spots.
We would be happy, if it would be helpful to the board, would be happy to put something in writing for you on how we view the uses and the zoning code.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so any further discussion before all right, I'm just going to do it. Do I have a motion to authorize the CPL to prepare a draft EAF Part 2 and Part 3 for Duchess Manor, site redesign and restoration, site development plan, and special use permit?
So moved.
Felix moved it, and got a second as well. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Well, we have 7 voting members, so it passes 7-0. I don't believe this board is going to consider a motion for draft determination of significance.
No.
I didn't hear that, so I think that's where
Thank you.
we'll stop for this evening.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
We'll see you
Thank
next month.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we do have one more item on the agenda, so just give John a moment to make his way back in here.
Give them a second.
Yeah, we'll just hang tight for a minute here.
Where do you think you're going?
I brought candy.
I want candy.
Oh, you can stay.
I usually want the chocolate.
I'll wait around.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. So we have one more item under other business, and this is the appointment of a planning board vice chair for 2026. So this comes largely from our adopted rules and regulations. And actually, I don't know if our consultants need to stay unless you want to, but.
We should be done in 30 seconds, so let's.
30 seconds?
Yeah, please.
All right. Here, Felix, you do it.
Speed read, Felix.
Yes. Remember Robert's Rules of Order, and if there is any debate, it should be after a motion and a second.
All right. We'll need you for an opinion now. Anyway, so yeah, to make this short, so I asked Anthony if he'd be willing to continue as vice chair, as he's been doing for, I think it's been close to 5 years now, 4 or 5 anyway.
Has it been that long?
I think so.
It goes so fast.
And so this would be to nominate somebody to fill that vice chair position through the end of 2026, so through
And I
December
nominate
31.
Anthony, who's done an amazing job, and I'm very proud to be part of this board and to have him as our vice chair. So I think I would like to nominate him.
All right, so Felix nominates Anthony. Is there a second for that nomination?
Yes, I second, yeah. Third.
All right, Kevin seconds it.
Is he breathing?
And so first we're going to vote on this nomination, all right? So all in favor of Anthony being I don't need that vice chair for the current year?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions?
I'll
All
abstain.
right. All right. All right. You don't have to, but okay.
I've already abstained twice tonight. What's one more?
Come on.
All right. So are there any other nominations for the
No.
position of vice chair?
No, no more nominations.
You sure? Nobody wants to nominate someone else?
No.
How about Robbie? I think Robbie would be excellent.
No, I don't know.
All right.
I have to agree first.
All right, seeing as how there are no other nominations, do we have a motion to appoint Anthony as vice chair for the town of Fishkill Planning Board for 2026 through December 31st of 2026?
Yes, so moved.
Felix moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Bob. And any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And one abstention?
Sure.
All right, congratulations, Anthony, on the reappointment.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
So,
Mr.
Nothing else? Thank you, guys.
Chair, a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, right there. We are adjourned.
I won't abstain from the motion to adjourn. I will. No, I will not.